Part 13. Finn Taylor had bought too many things for them to carry. Besides, given Henry James's attitude, they probably wouldn't be able to stay in their house anymore. After giving it some thought, Finn Taylor made a call to Chloe Yates. Do you have a spare house? Yes, do you need one? I'll get someone to clean it up. Oh right, I bought everything in your boutique just now. Get someone to send the things over. Everything? Chloe Yates was in a state of shock. What's going on? Why is he giving me money? Did my shop assistants do something? Chloe Yates was slightly afraid that a foolish shop assistant mocked Finn Taylor for being unable to afford a bag. However, she had always taught them to respect every customer and not look down on anyone. No, it has nothing to do with them. I just have some idiotic relatives. Do you need my help? No, you don't have to deal with Nathan Yates either. I have my own plans for him. Because of Finn Taylor's command, Chloe Yates quickly ordered more than 100 cars over to pick the former's shopping bags up. As for Finn Taylor's family, they were headed for Henry James's house in a Bentley. But Linda James's family was really at a loss for words at how shameless Henry James's family was. They were still family, and Linda James was Henry James's elder sister after all. Yet, Henry James had thrown all of their luggage outside the gate. Just as the chauffeur was picking up their things, Corinne James walked out. What are you doing here? Do you still want to stay here? Scram, our family doesn't welcome you. Finn Taylor patted the car and smiled. You're wrong, we're here to tell you that we've gotten a Bentley too. Look, it's even more expensive than yours. Corinne James had already faced quite a heavy blow today, and now, Finn Taylor was even getting at her with a Bentley. More importantly, his car was better than hers. Corinne James could no longer hold it in. She slammed the door shut. After picking up their luggage, the family headed for Chloe Yates's villa. Finn, where are we going? I have a friend in Los Angeles who has a spare house. She's letting us stay in it for a few days. Yvette Larson already had a good idea of who that friend was, but she wasn't going to be petty about it. After enduring trials and tribulations, she was sure that Finn Taylor was loyal to her. It was normal for him to have some female friends after all. It would be even more bizarre for him not to have any. Yvette Larson's family thought that the spare house Finn Taylor was talking about was a 2-bedroom apartment, but the car rolled to a stop in front of a villa. As soon as they arrived, the automatic door rolled open. As Finn Taylor walked in, a besuited middle-aged man walked out of the villa. He bowed toward the family. Hello, Mr. Taylor. I'm the butler of this villa. Please let me know if you have any requests while you're here. Finn Taylor nodded and handed him a cigarette. What's your name? The butler received it but didn't light it. You can call me Seth. All right, Seth. Many security officers then walked out of the villa to carry Finn Taylor's things in. After all, Finn Taylor had bought everything in the boutique. Yvette Larson couldn't help but sigh as she glanced at those bags. Why did you have to do that? All she wanted was to show off. We could have just let her. Finn Taylor shrugged indifferently. I only spent $2 million. Even if I did this every day, I wouldn't even finish spending all my money in this lifetime. There's no need to worry about such a trivial matter. Ellipsis. At that very moment, Corinne James was fuming. She shoved everything to the ground. Then, she turned to her father. Dad, I don't want to see Yvette Larson's family. I want them out of Los Angeles. Henry James hated Yvette Larson's family, but he didn't have the ability to chase them out of Los Angeles. Then, can you prevent them from attending Grandma's birthday celebrations? Henry James gave it some thought. That will be difficult too. Linda is Mom's daughter after all, so it won't be right for her not to show up. All of a sudden, Corinne James said, oh right, I'll tell Second Auntie that we won't celebrate Grandma's birthday at home this year. We'll find a restaurant, and none of us will be here when Yvette Larson's family comes over. Henry James knew he couldn't win an argument against his daughter and had no choice but to agree. Immediately, Corinne James picked up her phone and dialed Weston Shaw's number. Weston, Yvette is in Los Angeles. Weston Shaw was agitated the moment he heard that name. What, she's in Los Angeles? Although Weston Shaw had never intended to return that sum of money, he couldn't help but feel anxious now that they were here. I know that you don't want to see her either, right? I'm planning on bringing everyone out to a restaurant for Grandma's birthday celebrations. We'll make Yvette Larson's family miss out on it. I'll tell Grandma that their family didn't even come to Los Angeles, but I need your cooperation. Weston Shaw contemplated for a moment before saying, all right, but what if Grandma calls them? That isn't a big problem. We'll just have to step in and take Grandma's phone away so they won't be able to call. Weston Shaw gave it more thought. Anyway, Corinne James is the mastermind behind this. I won't have to do anything but put on an act. As such, he agreed. A day before their grandmother's birthday, Corinne James's family and Weston Shaw's family arrived at their grandma's house. They told her about their plans to bring her out to a restaurant. Their grandma Lucy Williams couldn't help but ask, "What about Linda? Is her family not coming?" Hearing her grandma's words, Corinne James acted as though she was upset. "Grandma, did you know? I called Yvette, but she said that we're just country bumpkins. She's made a name for herself in San Francisco, and she's too good for us now. She even said that it was a waste of time to attend your birthday celebrations because she could earn millions from a meeting with a CEO instead." Corinne James couldn't help but lash out. That damed Yvette Larson, she's such an ingrate. Has she forgotten about how good Grandma has been to her? How could she say that Grandma can't even compare to her business partners? Corinne James used her imagination to cook up a believable lie. As expected, Lucy Williams flared up the moment she heard that. "Did she really say that?" "Of course, Grandma. No, I have to call her. Who does she think she is? Does she think she can look down on us just because she's earned a bit of money now?" As Lucy Williams said that, she whipped out her phone and was about to make the call. Just then, Corinne James snatched the phone away. "Let me help you, Grandma." Then, she pretended to make a call. After a while, she turned to her grandma. "She's not picking up." Weston Shaw added, "Grandma, Yvette Larson is too much. She's just the Larson Corporation's CEO. How could she ignore your calls?" Weston Shaw couldn't help but fan the flames. Then, Corinne James even said that the signal was poor, so she left with the phone. About 10 minutes later, she returned and handed the phone back to her grandmother. "Grandma, I've tried calling her a few times, but she's not picking up." "Forget it. Why should we try calling such an ingrate?" Of course, Corinne James hadn't gone out to make a call to her cousin. It was to remove the SIM card from her grandma's phone. Now, she wouldn't be able to make any calls at all, much less to Yvette Larson. Lucy Williams fumed but could only accept the fact. She put away her phone. "Grandma, don't get upset. Think about Nathan Yates. He's so young and capable. He already has his own company and earns hundreds of thousands every year. When the time comes, I'll make sure he's filial to you." "Oh right, Nathan was the one who reserved a spot for us at Laloon Hotel tomorrow too. Chloe Yates is the boss there. Nathan is a VIP at Laloon Hotel, will definitely be treated well there. Tomorrow, we'll head to the top floor of the hotel for a meal and enjoy the scenery of Los Angeles." Corinne James's words pleased the old lady. All right, Corinne, you really found a good son-in-law for our family. That kid is pretty impressive. He already has a company at such a young age. Once you get married, I'll hand over the position of family head to you too." The old lady made it seem as though the James family was a prominent family and that she was handing over something precious. Ellipsis. In Chloe Yates's villa, Linda James rushed over to her son-in-law's room with her phone. Thankfully, Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson were merely chatting. Otherwise, it would have been awkward. "Mom, what are you doing? Can't you knock?" Linda James didn't say much before handing her phone over. "Hurry up and take a look. Is my phone spoiled? Why can't I get through to your grandma?" Finn Taylor took it over and tested it. It was true. He then tried making a call to himself. It got through. "I don't think it's a problem with your phone. Something is wrong with Grandma's phone." "Something is wrong with Grandma's phone? What do you mean?" Linda James was still confused. "Mom, I'll be honest with you. Your amazing brother told Grandma that we never came to Los Angeles and isn't intending on attending her birthday celebrations. Moreover, they intend on holding the celebrations at Laloon Hotel tomorrow, not at home. Even if we go to their house, we won't catch them." Linda James was stumped. She had never thought that her brother would be so brutal. "That won't do. I must go over to tell Mom all about this now." "What's the point in doing that? We'll naturally have our ways of dealing with them tomorrow." Linda James was still in a daze. "What do you mean?" "You'll see tomorrow." Linda James took her phone back. Although she still didn't understand what was going on, she chose to trust her son-in-law. What Finn Taylor had done in the past had left a deep impression on Linda James. Now, she had full trust in his abilities. The next day, the James family arrived at the old lady's house. Nathan Yates had arranged for several cars, and they all got in. The cars quickly arrived at Laloon Hotel. As Nathan Yates brought the drivers to the parking lot, the James family decided to head into the hotel first. However, they were stopped at the door. "I'm sorry, our hotel has been reserved for the day. We're not open to outsiders." The James family glanced at each other. What's going on? Oh, I know, Nathan must have reserved the hotel for us. Didn't Kareen say that Nathan is a VIP here? That must be it. With that, he walked up to the security officer. That's right, we're Nathan Yates's guests. The security officer stared at him and asked, "Who's Nathan Yates? Why have I never heard of him?" Those words angered the entire family. In their eyes, Nathan Yates was terribly outstanding, and the James family's circumstances would only get better under his leadership. Yet, this lowly security officer was saying that he had never even heard of Nathan Yates. Fuck, of course, you've never heard of him. You're just a security officer. Get your manager here. Just then, someone walked out from the hotel lobby. Hello, I'm the manager here. Are you looking for me? We're the guests of the one who reserved this hotel today. He's gone to park the car, so can't we enter first? The manager glanced at them. That can't be. That guest said that he was only inviting 4 other guests, so why do you guys have so many people? 4. The James family was stunned. What is Nathan Yates trying to do? Is he not intending on letting the old lady eat with us? Just then, Nathan Yates walked over from the parking lot. Why are you all standing here? Why don't you head in? Before Nathan Yates understood the situation, he saw everyone waiting outside and thought that they were too embarrassed. As such, he urged them on. Nathan, you're here, hurry up and explain it to the manager. Why can only 4 people enter? Nathan Yates was confused. Mr. Hadley, you're here too. We're here for a meal. What's wrong? A meal? Someone has reserved the entire hotel today. Please go somewhere else for your meal. The manager didn't mince his words with Nathan Yates. He didn't humble himself down just because the latter was a VIP at the hotel. After all, managers of the hotel had shares here too. Chloe Yates's hotel made bucket loads of money every year. Of course, his shares meant that he had a share of the pie too. At the very least, he didn't have to fear Nathan Yates. Huh, that can't be. I saw that there were still seats available yesterday. Just then, the James family was starting to get impatient. Nathan, when can we go in to have our meal? Of course, Nathan Yates was in a tight spot. He was at a loss. He had already made a promise to the James family, yet the manager was now telling him that someone had reserved the entire hotel for the day. Mr. Hadley, do you think you can let us in? We'll sit in the most secluded room. We'll be sure not to disturb that guest. The manager glared at him. What do you mean by that, Nathan Yates? What kind of place do you think this is? This is Chloe Yates's territory. Do you think our boss is such a dishonorable person? Nathan Yates was on the brink of tears. No, that's not what I meant. I'll leave right away. Mr. Hadley, please take it as though you never heard what I said. Please don't tell Ms. Yates about it. With that, he shook his head helplessly at the family. Let's go somewhere else. Karen James raged. What do you mean? You brought us here, but we can't even go in now. Are you trying to play with us? Henry James, don't you always brag about how impressive your son-in-law is? Why don't you show us? Henry James was helpless too. It would be humiliating if we can't get the others in today. Nathan Yates, I command you to get us in today. Kareen James only added fuel to the flames. That's right, why can't we eat here? We're VIPs here, and you're just a manager. What right do you have to stop me? I'll get your boss to fire you right away. It had taken Nathan Yates a long time to settle the manager, yet his girlfriend had negated all that with just a few sentences. Oh, you're good, Nathan Yates, you want to lodge a complaint? You're welcome to do so. Why don't I help you make a call and see if Ms. Yates will fire me? Nathan Yates had to resist the urge to slap his girlfriend. How could anyone be so brainless? I have never seen anyone apart from her. Does she think she can afford to offend anyone in the world? Has she already forgotten about how fiercely Chloe Yates had glared at her just days earlier? Forget it, let's go. I'm sure we'll find somewhere else with good food. Nathan Yates tried to convince the rest. But this time, Lucy Williams butted in. Nathan Yates, you've really disappointed me this time. Why should we have to leave? Are you trying to make fun of us too? How can I let you become the family head in the future when you've just embarrassed our entire family? Call your boss. I refuse to believe that she'd just let this slide. Nathan Yates couldn't help but wonder if the entire family was crazy. The manager couldn't hide his smile. The James family, so what? I've attended countless conferences with my boss. Los Angeles Business Conference, Los Angeles Forbes 100, Los Angeles Development Conference, Los Angeles Top 10 Conference. Why have I never seen your family? Come on, why don't you tell me who's the most outstanding in your family? Let's see if I'll be impressed. The James family, you're just a piece of trash. Do you really think so highly of yourselves? Now that they were trying to bring his boss into the picture, the manager was annoyed. He had no intention of letting them off. With just a few words, he completely put the James family down, so much so that they no longer wanted to stay here any longer. Who could we possibly mention? Nobody dared to say a thing. They didn't have a name they could mention. After all, they had never thought of Yvette Larson as part of their family. Corinne James was just a pampered and spoiled princess who had nothing to her name. Weston Shaw was a gambling addict and was so poor that it was laughable. As for the second generation, there was no need to even mention them. If they were the slightest bit reliable, the family wouldn't have placed all their hopes on Nathan Yates. Just as the James family was about to make their escape, a Bentley rolled to a stop in front of the hotel. The manager then brought dozens of well-built bodyguards with him as he walked up to the Bentley. Everyone stood in line, and the manager personally opened the door. The James family were already prepared to leave but couldn't help but stare at such a magnificent sight. Who is that? Why is the manager treating him so respectfully? Is he the one who reserved the entire hotel for the day? The family had mixed feelings toward that man. On the one hand, they couldn't help but feel annoyed that he had reserved the entire hotel, leading to them being chased away. On the other hand, he must be terribly wealthy to reserve the entire hotel. The James family couldn't help but have a preposterous idea. If that man takes a liking to our daughter, we might very well be able to rise up. Seeing that it was a Bentley, Corinne James thought of what Finn Taylor had said to her that day and couldn't help but fume. The car door opened. The moment the people got out of the car, the entire James family was stunned. It was the family of 4: Finn Taylor, Yvette Larson, Frances Larson, and Linda James. What's going on? The James family turned to each other. The old lady walked up to the family and shouted, "Linda James, didn't your family say that you weren't coming? You guys don't even care about me. I'm your mother. How could you not come back to celebrate my birthday? And you, Yvette Larson, what did you say? What do you mean by saying your client is more important than my birthday celebrations? You even called us country bumpkins who weren't worthy of being your relatives. Since that's the case, why are you here? All I want to do is have a meal. What are you trying to do by reserving the entire place?" Along the way here, Finn Taylor and his wife had already envisioned this happening. This was why they had already taught Linda James how to respond. As such, Linda James replied, "Mom, you're maligning me. I've been in Los Angeles for an entire week. I was staying in Henry's house, but he chased my whole family out. Our family is now homeless, and we've been looking for somewhere to stay. Oh right, Mom, I've been trying to get hold of you. Why didn't you answer my calls?" With that, Linda James whipped out her phone and made a call to Lucy Williams. Yet, the latter's phone didn't ring. Even Lucy Williams thought that it was strange. Yvette Larson snatched it over and asked, "Grandma, why isn't there a SIM card in your phone? Who has touched your phone?" Hearing that, Lucy Williams's gaze turned to Corinne James. "Mom, how could I not come for your birthday celebrations? Even if I had to crawl over, I'd have done so. But when I got there, nobody was there. Mom, I was chased out by Henry. I thought you didn't want me anymore." As she said so, Linda James burst into tears. She was a natural. After all, she had had much practice back at home. "Henry James, you'd better give me an explanation. What's going on?" It was only then that the old lady came to her senses. "Perhaps I really have been tricked by my son's family. Mom, don't listen to them. If they really wanted to meet you, they wouldn't have waited until today." Henry James thought that he'd won the argument. Karen James added, "That's right. You were the ones who didn't show up, so how dare you blame us?" Yvette Larson put on a fake smile and looked at her aunt. "Second auntie, you're really maligning us. Let me show you something." With that, she took out her phone and opened the call history. "Do you see that? I made more than 30 calls to you, but you never answered a single one. What, are you afraid that I'd make you return the $30,000 you borrowed?" Karen James naturally wouldn't take that lying down and immediately shot back, "Nonsense. Since when did I borrow $30,000 from you? Do you have any proof? Do you have an IOU?" Finn Taylor chuckled and took his phone out too. "I'm sorry you asked to borrow money at a restaurant. Thankfully, there were surveillance cameras there. Do you want to have a look?" With that, Finn Taylor played the video. Although nobody saw the video, they all heard the recording. Karen James's family had indeed borrowed $30,000 from Yvette Larson's family. Here are the transaction records from the bank. Of course, I can get you witnesses if you want them as well. I'm sure the staff at the bank will remember me withdrawing $30,000 in a single day. Finn Taylor rendered Karen James speechless. Yvette Larson, you must have done this on purpose. Did you purposely rent out this entire place because you knew that Nathan booked us seats here? You wanted to embarrass us, didn't you? Karen James was fuming. I've been humiliated again and again because of Yvette Larson. I'm not going to let my cousin get away with her shameless behavior. I don't understand what you're saying. I wanted to attend Grandma's birthday celebrations, but you didn't tell me where it was, so we made a wasted trip. We were about to leave when Finn Taylor got a call from his friend for a lunch invitation. We're here for that. Yvette Larson was calm and collected, and her tone was elegant and gentle. She was worlds apart from a shrew like Karen James. Friends? What kind of stupid friends could he possibly have? Who doesn't know that he's just a useless matrilocal son-in-law? Is his friend a rubbish collector? Karen James didn't believe her cousin. In fact, she thought that those words were nothing more than excuses. That was why she had said so, but this had landed her in hot soup. Oh, do I look like a rubbish collector to you? Silence. There was pin-drop silence. An elegant young lady in red walked out of the hotel. Her words scared everyone into silence. No, she was talking about herself. Nathan Yates was scared stiff. He had never expected Chloe Yates to show up. What does she have to do with this? Oh, it's you. I remember you, cousin. The James family, who had hardly dared to take a breath, breathed out in relief when they heard that they were cousins. Oh, Nathan, you're Ms. Yates' cousin. You should have said so earlier. How embarrassing that we didn't even recognize her. Ms. Yates, I'm the uncle of Nathan's wife. You can call me uncle. I'm his auntie. You can call me Auntie James. Every word that came out of the James family's mouths was like daggers stabbing Nathan Yates's heart. Shut up, all of you. I'm not worthy of being Ms. Yates's cousin, Nathan Yates said while slapping himself. One slap after another. He dared not stop for fear of offending Chloe Yates. Forget it, you weren't the one who said so. I'm not so petty. It's just some idiots trying to make use of their relatives. If it were someone else who had said so, the James family would have kicked up a fuss a long time ago. However, they didn't dare to utter a word because it was Chloe Yates who had said so. Chloe Yates couldn't care less about the James family. She walked up to Finn Taylor and bowed slightly. Greetings, Mr. Taylor. It's such a great honor that you're here to dine with me, Mr. Taylor. This way, please. Although the James family had no idea what Chloe Yates was up to, they could see very well just how respectful she was toward Finn Taylor. Their gazes were fixed, and they didn't dare to utter a single word. Only Lucy Williams, the family head, spoke up. Chloe Yates, you're inviting them in but leaving me here. Chloe Yates nodded. Seeing her nod, Lucy Williams finally let out a smile. As long as I can enter the hotel, the family won't be that embarrassed. I nearly forgot about all of you. Guards, chase them away. Don't let them disturb me while I'm dining with Mr. Taylor. Chloe Yates's words were like a death sentence to the James family. Chase us away? What do you mean? Who knew what went through Weston Shaw's mind? Of all times he could have erupted, he had to choose this moment. Weston Shaw viciously kicked his leg toward Chloe Yates. Thankfully, Finn Taylor stepped in and kicked his wife's cousin, sending him flying dozens of meters back. Weston Shaw only stopped when he hit the flower bed. He clutched his stomach and groaned in pain. $150,000. Anything less, and I'm not getting up. Everyone thought that Weston Shaw had finally paid for his words, but their faces soured the moment they heard him. This is clearly extortion. Karen James was another strange character. She hugged Finn Taylor's leg. You can't leave. You have to pay for his medical bills. $150,000, nothing less. Finn Taylor tried to shake her off, but she refused to let go. Scram. Finn Taylor tried scaring her away, but that didn't work either. It was really tough dealing with a leech like this. Ms. Yates, can I borrow a few people from you? Go ahead. Beat him up and break all his bones. I don't even want to see him in a wheelchair. I want him to be in the ICU for the rest of his life. Upon receiving Finn Taylor's command, the manager rushed forward with several security officers. They raised their batons and were about to hit the other. Hold on, I'll leave. Will that do? Karen James finally gave in. She was sure that these people were capable of sending her son into the ICU. It was possible that they would compensate her monetarily for it, but what was the use of money if her son ended up in that state? Karen James looked at her son, and her heart ached. My son was beaten up for nothing this time. Thanks, Mr. Hadley, Finn Taylor said politely. Although the other hadn't done anything, Finn Taylor had asked for his help after all. That's all right, it's our job, Mr. Hadley. That family still owes me $30,000. If you have spare time, Please help me collect that money from them. If you manage to retrieve that money, you guys can split it amongst yourselves." Although the manager had no need for any money, his security officers only earned around $700 a month. Hearing the good news, they immediately lit up. They surrounded Weston Shaw, having no intention of letting him leave. Fearing that they would be implicated and would need to pay for Weston Shaw, the rest of the James family quickly left. As for Finn Taylor and his family, they had already entered the hotel and headed to the top floor. The hotel was decorated in an extravagant and luxurious style. Linda James probably would have felt out of place in the past. But now that she lived in a multi-million-dollar mansion, such decor didn't seem unfamiliar to her anymore. Once they reached the top floor, Chloe Yates and Finn Taylor stood in front of the full-height windows. Chloe Yates pointed each area out and introduced them to Finn Taylor, telling the latter about how she was related to them. Finn Taylor nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad. It hasn't been easy for you to get to where you are today." "Yes, but it's all thanks to your kindness toward me, Mr. Taylor." Finn Taylor waved her off, not wanting to talk about it. It had meant nothing to him at that time. In fact, he had never expected Chloe Yates to come so far. Perhaps he was unknowingly benefiting from an unexpected course of events. "Mr. Taylor, I've made some progress in what you asked me to investigate. Do you want to have a look at it?" Finn Taylor nodded. Chloe Yates then took out a stack of papers. Finn Taylor took the stack and started flipping through the papers. "Mars. It's not the planet we're talking about but a location where people are locked up abroad. Anyone who goes in has never been seen outside again. That's why people call it Mars." Finn Taylor was contemplating if his grandpa was indeed locked up in Mars. "According to my mother, my grandpa is still alive. At the very least, we can't be sure that he's dead before seeing his corpse. Mars is the only possibility." Finn Taylor investigated this secretly without even telling the four guardians of Peregrine Hall. It wasn't that he didn't trust them. It was simply because his grandpa was connected to too many different things, such as the birth of a saint and the birth of a jinx. Who knew how many people within Peregrine Hall wanted his grandpa dead for the sake of their own self-interests? "Remember not to tell anyone about this. I mean anyone including your family. If I find out that you've leaked this, I'll kill you and everyone who knows about it." Finn Taylor exuded a murderous aura that scared even Chloe Yates. She had always thought that the former was a gentle and elegant man, so she had never thought that he would have such a side to him too. "I swear that I'll never say a word about this." "All right," Finn Taylor nodded. The pair then headed to the private room. While eating, Yvette Larson stole glances at Chloe Yates. Although she trusted her husband and believed that there was nothing going on between him and Chloe Yates, the other woman was really stunning. Chloe Yates even exuded a unique aura that even she didn't have. It was only natural to feel jealous. "Ms. Yates, how did you get to know Finn?" Finally, Yvette Larson could no longer hold her curiosity in. "It was a long time ago. My father passed away, and I was busking to earn some money from my father's funeral. It was Mr. Taylor who gave me some money to send my father off." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch on that." Yvette Larson was only jealous and wanted to know more. She had never expected to touch such a sore point, so she immediately apologized. "That's all right, it's been a long time. Ms. Larson, do you need my help with the James family?" Yvette Larson glanced at her mother. No, although that family is a little too much, they're still my mother's family. We can just coexist." Chloe Yates nodded, understanding where the other was coming from. "Ms. Larson, how's the villa? Do you need anything else?" Yvette Larson shook her head. She couldn't help but feel slightly self-conscious. She had never felt this way in front of any other woman, apart from Chloe Yates. Her usual confidence was gone. Chloe Yates had whatever she had and even what she didn't have. Whatever Finn Taylor wanted, the former had been able to get it done right away. On the other hand, she only brought him trouble whether it was the Larson family or the James family. She had never given Finn Taylor the warmth of a family but only mockery and hostility that existed between relatives. At that moment, Yvette Larson couldn't help but feel sorry for her husband. Having been beaten up by Finn Taylor, Weston Shaw was indignant. As such, he wanted to teach the other and his wife a lesson. Because he liked to gamble, he had gotten to know Diego, who told him that he knew a gangster boss. In a slightly dim pool hall, there were only 4 pool tables in the entire hall. About 7 to 8 people were dispersed around the hall, playing pool. Because a few of them had cigarettes in their mouths, thick smoke clouded the room. As Diego brought Weston Shaw in, the latter couldn't help but cough. "Brother Dan, this is my brother, Weston Shaw. He would like to ask a favor of you." The person called Brother Dan was a well-built man of about 180 pounds. He peered at Weston Shaw, and that gaze frightened the latter so much that he fell to the ground. "I can do that, but my subordinates need to be paid. Look." With that, he made a gesture with his hands, asking for money. Diego nudged Weston Shaw, who immediately understood. The latter took out a stack of notes from his wallet and handed them over. "Brother Dan, I have $1,500 here. It's for all of you to get some cigarettes." Brother Dan took the stack of notes and nodded. "Not bad, you know the rules around here. Tell me, who do you want me to deal with?" "Brother Dan, I want you to teach Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson a lesson." "Oh, who are they?" Brother Dan had been in the industry for a long time, so he knew that there were some people he couldn't afford to offend no matter what. Before dealing with these two people, he had to understand who they were. He would be seeking death if he were to offend some prominent figures. "Don't worry, Brother Dan. These two people aren't from Los Angeles. Yvette Larson is my cousin from San Francisco. She's the CEO of her family's company, and she's quite pretty. You can, as for Finn Taylor, he's her husband and a matrilocal son-in-law." The moment Brother Dan heard the words, matrilocal son-in-law, he couldn't help but frown. How shameless. Why would a man become a matrilocal son-in-law for no good reason? However, he was rather interested in Yvette Larson. "You're quite a vicious young man to get me to teach your own cousin a lesson." "Brother Dan, she's not much of a cousin to me. She wanted to break my limbs and send me into the ICU. Why should I let her off?" Brother Dan didn't care about the feuds between relatives. All he cared about was doing his job after receiving the money. All right, let's go." Upon receiving Brother Dan's command, Weston Shaw quickly ran out of the pool hall. It scared him stiff to be there in the first place. He felt it terrifying to interact with these people. At the same time, Corrine James's house. Nathan Yates had arrived at the residence. "Nathan is here." Seeing that his daughter's boyfriend had arrived, Henry James was all smiles. "Although Yvette Larson's family managed to show off during our grandma's birthday celebrations this time, Nathan Yates isn't bad either. A day will come when Nathan Yates will definitely surpass Chloe Yates and crush Yvette Larson's family under his feet." "Corrine, Nathan is here." Henry James rushed up to call his daughter down. "Oh, you're here." Nathan Yates removed the ring from his finger and placed it on the table. "Let's break up." This ring was his engagement ring with Corrine James. Although the couple hadn't organized an engagement party, they had bought each other engagement rings. This meant that they were going to spend the rest of their lives together. Nathan Yates's sudden declaration stunned Corrine James. There was no way she'd be able to accept everything she was about to lose. That was much scarier than the thought of a breakup. "Why?" "Because your family offended Finn Taylor." "Offended Finn Taylor? If he had said anything else, I might have accepted it. But what's with this excuse? He's going to break up with me just because of a useless matrilocal son-in-law." "Are you serious? For a useless matrilocal son-in-law?" "Useless matrilocal son-in-law." When Nathan Yates heard those words, he couldn't help but chuckle. Corrine James's family is truly ridiculous. Even until now, they are still so ignorant about the situation. Did they not see how Chloe Yates treated Finn Taylor that day? Her terribly respectful attitude made it clear that even she's no match for Finn Taylor. Yet, this family regards such a hidden gem as a useless matrilocal son-in-law. Corrine James's words convinced Nathan Yates of his decision. "If I don't break off this relationship as soon as possible, I might very well be dragged down by this family." "Corrine James, you're crazy." After leaving these words, Nathan Yates simply left. Corrine James naturally couldn't accept this and rushed out, hugging the other's leg. "Nathan, don't leave. Aren't we engaged? Do you not love me anymore?" "Love you? I only love your body. You're so brainless, so why would I love you?" As he said that, he couldn't help but sneer. "Don't look at me like that. Are you trying to show your true love for me? Isn't what you really love just my money? If I had no money, you'd break up with me too." Corrine James had no way of rebutting him. She was a pampered and spoiled princess. She thought that her looks were worthy of million-dollar luxury cars, cash gifts, and even multi-million mansions. The only reason she was still with Nathan was that she hadn't found anyone better. Once someone richer appeared, she would definitely break up with Nathan Yates without any hesitation. Of course, she would do the same if Nathan Yates were to go bankrupt. Why would she bother with him if he had no money? But Corrine James had never thought a day would come when she would be dumped. Instead, Nathan Yates had left without even sparing her a second glance. Corrine James's gaze was filled with fury. "I'm going to take my revenge on Yvette Larson. I have to let that woman know the consequences of offending me." Kareem James got through to Weston Shaw. "Weston, don't you always go gambling?" No sooner had Weston Shaw exited the pool hall than he received his cousin's phone call. "Why do you ask?" His heart stopped. "Is my cousin going to borrow money from me? Do me a favor. Get someone to teach Yvette Larson a lesson." The moment Weston Shaw heard those words, he couldn't help but mutter inwardly. "That's something I had just said earlier." As such, he imitated Brother Dan. "That's possible, but my people need to be paid." "You're asking for money then? How much?" The gears were turning in Weston Shaw's mind. "I've already spent $1,500, so I can't ask for anything less." $3,000. The moment he said that, he was even thinking of offering the chance of bargaining if the price was too high. But before he could say anything more, Kareem James had given her reply. "Fine." Weston Shaw hadn't expected his cousin to be so generous. He had gotten a good deal this time. Weston Shaw realized that he had made easy money this time. He had never expected Kareem James to be so vicious toward his cousin. It had pained him to spend $1,500, yet his cousin had spent $3,000 without any hesitation. She really intended to kill the other. Kareem James hated Yvette Larson. She hated the latter to her guts. Ever since she was young, she had always been suppressed by the latter, but the latter had married a useless matrilocal son-in-law while she had found such an outstanding man like Nathan Yates. She had thought that this was her chance to one-up the other. As such, she had gone all out in showing off and boasting about her lifestyle. But things had reached this stage today. Yvette Larson had been invited to a meal with Chloe Yates. On the other hand, her boyfriend had initiated a breakup with her. It felt like Yvette Larson had slapped her in the face, so she wanted the former to die a horrible death. Even if she had to sell all her assets, she would be willing to do so as long as her cousin was dead. "Kareem, do you really want to kill Yvette Larson?" Even Henry James was scared by the murderous intent his daughter was exuding. "Dad, are you really going to do nothing after your daughter was bullied?" "Of course not, but I want to ask you something. Won't you be implicated if something happens to Yvette Larson?" "What could happen to me? Won't someone take the fall for me if something really happens?" Henry James knew who his daughter was talking about. Weston Shaw. "It isn't that bad of an idea to make that rascal take the blame." Ellipsis. In the villa, Yvette Larson was browsing through the bags that her husband had bought. Now, she was spoiled for choice. "Finn, don't just stand there. Help me make a decision. Which should I bring when I visit my mom's hometown tomorrow?" The James family's hometown wasn't in the city but in the suburbs. The family had only moved into the city after making some money a few years ago. Yvette Larson didn't have much nostalgia for Los Angeles. It was the suburbs where she spent her summer vacation, often spending up to a month there. She had deep feelings for that place. This one. It was the $50,000 bag that Finn Taylor chose. It wasn't because it was the most expensive one but because it was of the same design as the one he had given his wife the first time around. This was something that money couldn't buy. "All right, this one it is." "Oh right, you don't have to go back with me tomorrow if you're busy since I'm just going back to take a look. There's nothing interesting about the old residence anyway. You don't have to go." Chloe Yates had invited her husband for coffee the next day. Although Yvette Larson didn't know what they were going to discuss, she believed that it was important to her spouse. Chloe Yates's business was massive. While Finn Taylor seemed respected, he didn't have a company of his own. Yvette Larson hoped that he would learn from the other and establish a company of his own. Of course, she had no idea that Finn Taylor owned a company, one that was much larger than she could imagine. "It's fine, I can meet Chloe Yates at any time. Since you're going back, I have to go with you." No men should prioritize their careers. Although Yvette Larson was delighted by her husband's words, she pretended to be irked and requested that her husband meet Chloe Yates to discuss business matters instead. "Finn, you guys may be friends, but business is about trust. Since you've already promised her, you must keep your word." Seeing the seriousness on his wife's face, Finn Taylor couldn't help but chuckle. Eventually, he decided to accede to his wife's request. "Fine, I'll meet Chloe Yates tomorrow. You'd better be careful when going back to the old residence alone." "I'll be fine. Mom will be going back with me." Finn Taylor nodded. "If Yvette were to return alone, I'd be worried that the villagers would bully my wife. However, there's no need to worry if Linda James is returning with her. In fact, it would be good enough if the villagers weren't bullied by the mother-daughter duo." Ellipsis. The next day, the couple went their separate ways. Finn Taylor headed to a cafe, while Yvette Larson headed to the family's old residence in the suburbs. Of course, Chloe Yates had already reserved the entire cafe. Only she and Finn Taylor were in the cafe. The staff in the cafe naturally recognized such a prominent figure. As such, they were incredibly curious as to who the man was for her to book the entire cafe. However, nobody dared to eavesdrop on the conversation no matter how curious they were. That would simply be seeking death. I want to sell the company and move abroad, Chloe Yates suddenly spat out. To find Mars for me. Finn Taylor could read the other's mind at once. Chloe Yates pursed her lips but remained silent. Chloe, I know what you're thinking of. You want to go abroad and find Mars for me. Then, I wouldn't leave you, and you'd be able to stay by my side as my woman. But you have to keep in mind that I have a wife. I treat you as my friend, nothing more. Besides, do you really think you'd be able to find Mars? It'd be good enough if you don't get killed outside. Chloe Yates had only said one sentence, yet she had been completely exposed by Finn Taylor. She was at a loss for words. Focus on your business and expand it. Consolidate your power. I'll naturally let you know when I need you. Chloe Yates had no choice but to nod. Do you already have someone? Finn Taylor suddenly asked. Chloe Yates nodded and said to the waiter, bring him over. With that, the waiter quickly headed to a room. Not long after, he returned with another. This man was plump and looked like he weighed at least 180 pounds. This man was none other than Brother Dan. Ms. Yates. Of course, Brother Dan was nowhere as arrogant as he had been just a few days earlier at the pool hall. He couldn't help but humble himself in front of her, but that was only normal. After all, he was facing the biggest boss of Los Angeles, Chloe Yates. He would be tempting fate if he were to act high and mighty in front of her. Mr. Taylor. Chloe Yates gestured toward the other and introduced him. Mr. Taylor, Brother Dan echoed. She then added, he's my boss. That nearly scared Brother Dan to death. He was just shy of kneeling down because he felt that he hadn't been sincere enough earlier. Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry for my attitude earlier. Don't listen to her nonsense. Don't scare him. Call me Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor smiled and even extended his hand out in a friendly manner. But Brother Dan was completely stunned. Finn Taylor, that name sounds too familiar. Seeing the confusion on the other's face, Finn Taylor was confused too. Brother Dan quickly asked, Mr. Taylor, may I ask if you're from San Francisco? Is your wife's name Yvette Larson? Finn Taylor nodded. That's right. Chloe Yates and Finn Taylor looked at Brother Dan curiously. Why does he know Finn Taylor? Something isn't right. Oh no, something has happened. Brother Dan quickly whipped out his phone and called his subordinates, but not a single person picked up his call. Something really bad has happened. What's the matter? Even Finn Taylor started getting afraid as he saw the other acting this way. He couldn't help but feel that something bad was going to happen. Thud. Brother Dan immediately fell on his knees before Finn Taylor. A few days ago, my subordinate Diego brought someone named Weston Shaw over. He gave me $1,500 to teach you and Ms. Larson a lesson. This morning, I received news that Ms. Larson was headed for the James family's old residence, so I sent my men over to teach her a lesson. However, I've lost contact with them now. As he said that, he viciously slapped himself. Mr. Taylor, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't know that Ms. Larson was your wife. It's all that rascal's fault. It's Weston Shaw's fault. SoundStories audiobooks. Finn Taylor picked up his phone to call his wife. The phone was switched off. He dialed Linda James's number. It was switched off too. Finn Taylor pointed at Brother Dan. You'd better hope that nothing happens to Yvette. Otherwise, you'd better buy yourself a grave in advance. With that, he rushed out. Chloe Yates followed closely behind. Let's go. I'll drive since I know the roads here better. Finn Taylor didn't refuse and immediately got into the front passenger seat. Of course, Chloe Yates got into the driver's seat. Because it was a Maserati, there was no need to worry about the speed. Bang! As soon as the engine started up, the car flew out. Brother Dan was still kneeling on the ground, sobbing. Fuck. The more he thought about it, the more infuriated he got. As such, he headed straight for Weston Shaw. It was that bast who asked me to teach Yvette Larson a lesson. Who would have thought that Yvette Larson and Finn Taylor knew Chloe Yates? Moreover, I clearly heard Chloe Yates's introduction earlier. Finn Taylor is her boss, and what does that mean? It's obvious. Seeing the call from Diego, Weston Shaw's heart leapt with joy. Earlier that morning, Diego informed him that Brother Dan had already arranged for his men to stir up trouble for Yvette Larson. Weston Shaw was on cloud nine. Not only have I exacted revenge this time, but I have even earned $1,500. Just then, someone rang the doorbell. Who's that? Weston Shaw shouted. It's me, Brother Dan. The words of the man outside brought Weston Shaw back to reality. Why is Brother Dan here? Could it be that he found out about Kareem James paying me $3,000? Although he was filled with doubts, Weston Shaw didn't dare to let Brother Dan wait outside. As such, he rushed to open the door. But no sooner had he opened the door than he was met with a punch in the face. Weston Shaw fell to the ground, groaning in pain. This attracted the attention of Larry Shaw and Karen James. Who are you? Why are you hitting my son? Seeing her son on the floor, Karen James was emotional and wanted to reason it out with the other. Mom, he's Brother Dan. Karen James was about to rush forward when she heard that name. She couldn't help but retreat. Be Brother Dan. Although Karen James was protective of her son, she would never dare to fight it out with someone like Brother Dan. Brother Dan, has my son offended you? Tell me, I'll teach him a lesson for you. Me? No, he hasn't offended me. Hearing that, Karen James's heart relaxed. But Brother Dan continued, however, he offended Chloe Yates. Karen James's heart clenched up again. What does he mean? We don't even dare to offend Brother Dan, so how could we possibly offend Chloe Yates? Brother Dan, is this a misunderstanding? R. Weston wouldn't offend Chloe Yates. Misunderstanding? Bullshit. This Bast told me to deal with Yvette Larson and Finn Taylor, but Chloe Yates told me that Finn Taylor is her boss. As soon as he finished his sentence, Brother Dan picked up a stool and smashed it on Weston Shaw's face. The latter was now bleeding profusely. Brother Dan, it's a misunderstanding. It wasn't Meth One who did this, was Kareem James. Brother Dan was about to smash the stool down yet again but stopped mid-action. Who is Kareem James? My cousin. She was the one who paid me to ask you to teach Finn Taylor and Yvette Larson a lesson. Weston Shaw couldn't care less about the timeline. He simply pushed all responsibility to his cousin. Bring her over. Left with no other choice, Weston Shaw could only agree. As such, he made a call to his cousin, saying that Brother Dan had already sent someone to teach Yvette Larson a lesson and that she had to come over right now. On the other end of the call, Kareem James was overwhelmed with emotions. She quickly dropped everything she was doing and headed for Weston Shaw's house. Ellipsis. The James family's old residence. Yvette Larson couldn't help but marvel at the changes around. It had been years since she had been back, and the entire area had transformed. She had gone fishing in the nearby river in the past, but the current river was so murky that it felt uncomfortable to even look at it. In the past, the James family's residence had been quite a sight. There were a few houses around the main yard, and it seemed as though they were a prominent family. But the houses were crumbling now, and the yard was overgrown with weeds. It was a devastating sight. Just then, 7 to 8 men rushed out from around the residence. Their leader was a man of about 1.9 meters. You're Yvette Larson, right? She looked at the men, her face full of confusion. I am Yvette Larson, but who are you? I don't think I know you. You don't need to know who we are. All you need to know is that you offended someone and that they paid us to teach you a lesson. If you know what's best for you, you'd better just hurt yourself so that we can finish our assignment. Otherwise, I can't promise you that you'll get away that easily. The leader let out a sinister laugh as he said so. Money. I have money too. How much did they give you? I'll pay you double. Double. We have our rules. Two-way won't accept money from two parties. I think you're not going to cooperate with us. Charge. Kill those bitches. With that one command, all the men rushed forward. With that one command, all the men rushed forward. But just then, Yvette Larson whipped out a dagger. That truly stunned the men. Back down, or I'll kill all of you, Yvette Larson threatened. The tall man couldn't help but chuckle. Miss, we've been injured more times than you can imagine. Do you really think that knife would be effective unless you slash me on the neck? Come on, I'll let you have a go. As he said so, he took a step forward. This frightened Yvette Larson even more. She had only been threatening the men. There was no way she'd ever dare to put the knife to good use. However, her mother snatched the knife over. With a slash, she drew blood from that tall man's arm. Of course, she wouldn't dare to take his life either. How dare you? The leader was incensed. He charged over and snatched the dagger over. Just as he was about to stab the other with the dagger, a Maserati flew over and knocked him several meters into the air. Finn Taylor rushed out of the car and hurried to his wife's side. Are you all right? Yvette Larson shook her head and leapt into his embrace. She had truly been frightened earlier. If not for the fact that her husband had made it here in the nick of time, she might very well have died. As the man flew into the air, the other men were about to rush up to his aid when Chloe Yates sneered. I wonder which idiot is trying to go against me. Chloe Yates. As the men took a closer look at her, they realized that she was indeed Chloe Yates. Because of that, they didn't dare to go any further. Ms. Yates, we're only doing this because of Brother Dan's command. I know, I met him earlier. All of you, scram. Nobody in Los Angeles dared to go against Chloe Yates. Faced with her threat, the men quickly slipped away. As for that tall man, he didn't dare to say a thing even after being slashed and knocked down. Don't worry, I'm here. Even the gods won't be able to do a thing to you. Finn Taylor's fury rose with every passing moment. Weston Shaw, how dare he find someone to deal with Yvette? The James family is really playing with fire. Let's go to Weston Shaw's house. With Chloe Yates driving, the group headed to Weston Shaw's house. Very quickly, they arrived at their destination. As soon as they got there, Finn Taylor kicked the door open. He charged in without any care. What greeted him was the sight of Weston Shaw kneeling on the ground and the latter's parents so frightened that they were at a loss for words. And seated right there was Brother Dan. Seeing that Finn Taylor had come, Brother Dan quickly stood up. Mr. Taylor, is Ms. Larson fine? Finn Taylor glared at him. You should thank the heavens that she's fine. Your ancestors probably helped you out this time. Hearing his words, Brother Dan heaved a sigh of relief. It looks like Yvette Larson is fine. That's good. Since that's the case, I'll be able to push the blame to someone else. Brother Dan dropped to the ground, kowtowing. Mr. Taylor, please spare me. It was him and Corinne James. The two of them worked together to plot against Ms. Larson. I know nothing. Finn Taylor glanced at Weston Shaw. Oh, Corinne James is involved too. Weston Shaw was a coward, and he didn't dare to go against his cousin's husband now. No, it has nothing to do with me. Corinne gave me money to get someone to teach Yvette a lesson. I'm a victim too. Victim? Finn Taylor chuckled. Weston Shaw is great at cooking up stories. Come on, tell us why you're a victim. Corinne has always been very overbearing in our family. Because her boyfriend is Nathan Yates, I've never dared to go against her. What she says is the law. She only gave me $750. I even had to pay an additional $750 out of my own pocket. Weston Shaw was so shameless that he changed the $3,000 that his cousin had given him into $750 only. Oh, I see. There. As soon as he finished his sentence, Brother Dan slapped Weston Shaw viciously in the face. He even shouted, "Hurry up and thank Mr. Taylor." Weston Shaw was on the verge of tears. That slap had been piercing, but given the current circumstances, he didn't dare to rebuke the other. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Weston, why is the door open? Just then, a woman's voice sounded out. Weston Shaw could tell from the voice alone that it was his cousin hated this woman's guts now. Because he had pushed all blame to her, he couldn't afford to let her escape now. As such, he rushed forward and grabbed his cousin by her hair. Weston Shaw, have you gone crazy? What are you doing? Corinne James lashed out immediately. What's going on with Weston? Why did he grab me by the hair? Brother Dan, it's her. She was the one who wanted to teach Yvette a lesson. Now, Weston Shaw was no longer addressing his cousin by her full name but more affectionately. Oh, so you're the one who wanted to deal with Ms. Larson. Without a moment's hesitation, Brother Dan threw a punch at her. Two of the other's teeth fell out and onto the ground, and blood gushed out from her mouth. Even up until now, Corinne James was still in a state of confusion. What's going on? Didn't I ask Weston to get Brother Dan to teach Yvette Larson a lesson? Why is my cousin perfectly fine while I'm getting beaten up by Brother Dan? Brother Dan, what are you doing? I hired you, so why are you hitting me? Corinne James might have been afraid of Brother Dan at any other time, but she had nothing to fear now that the latter had already tried to rip her to pieces. Why did I hit you? Because you went against Ms. Larson, that's why. Yvette Larson spoke up. Corinne James, we're cousins and relatives no matter what. Do you really think it was right for you to find someone to deal with me? Corinne James glanced at her cousin from the corners of her eyes. Fuck. Who are you? Do you think you're worthy of being called my relative? Not only do I want to teach you a lesson, but I even want to kill you. You married a useless man and embarrassed our entire family, so why should you be able to eat at that hotel while we were rejected at the door? Why did Nathan Yates break up with me after meeting you? Why should you always be better than me? That's so unfair. Go to hell. And you, Finn Taylor, who are you? You're just a useless matrilocal son-in-law. Why do you even know Chloe Yates? Your whole family should go to hell. Why don't you all just die in a car accident? Corinne James's words stunned everyone present. No matter what, Corinne James and Yvette Larson were still cousins and relatives. They'd never held deep grudges against each other, yet the former hated her cousin and her family so deeply. It all boiled down to one reason only: Yvette Larson was better than her. This logic was hard to understand. What kind of upbringing did she have to have such warped worldviews? Mr. Taylor, how should we deal with her? Finn Taylor eyed his wife and said, Mom, bring Yvette back home. Linda James knew that her daughter would definitely be soft-hearted and that her heart would definitely ache if she were to see how Finn Taylor dealt with them. But these people had gone overboard, and they wouldn't learn their lesson if he didn't do something today. As such, Linda James left with her daughter. After informing Finn Taylor, Chloe Yates left too. Since the former was dealing with his own family matters, there was no need for her to remain there. How many men do you have? Over 50. All right, I'll give him to your men then. Corinne James flew into a frenzy the moment she heard that. What does Finn Taylor mean? Is he going to let so many people trample all over me? If that really happens, I'll be too humiliated to continue living on in this world. Besides, he said it in front of Weston's family. The entire James family will learn of this. If that really happens, I'll have to kill myself. Brother Dan chuckled without objecting. All right. Break all his limbs. Finn Taylor was referring to Weston Shaw. The latter thought that he had absolved himself of all responsibility by pushing the blame to his cousin. But since he had done something, Finn Taylor wasn't going to let him off either. Finn Taylor pointed at Karen James. The $30,000 from before. Karen James acted as though she had nothing to fear. I have no money, you can just kill me. Finn Taylor nodded. All right then, kill her. Tell your men to watch out and not be discovered. Brother Dan nodded seriously. Don't worry, we're experienced. That stunned Karen James. She'd never believe Finn Taylor if he said that he'd kill her, but she couldn't afford to disregard Brother Dan's words. I have it. I have $30,000. I'll return it to you right now. Return it. $30,000 is only the interest. You'll have to return me $60,000 in total. Are you robbing a bank? Karen James shouted, but she was met with Brother Dan's calm and collected gaze. She dared not rebut him. $60,000 it is. He have $60,000. Take the money. Brother Dan was terribly experienced in collecting debt. He knew that debt collectors couldn't afford to listen to other people's sweet nothings. If they were to do so, they might not even be able to collect half of what they were owed. As such, Karen James had to cough up that $60,000 right away. While Karen James's heart broke, she had no other choice but to retrieve the money. When she did so, Weston Shaw's eyes lit up. If I had known that we had this money at home, I would have spent it all a long time ago. But now, there's no way I'd dare to touch that money. He kowtowed to Finn Taylor, begging for mercy. Finn Taylor, I'm begging you. Our family borrowed $30,000 but returned $60,000. Do you think you can let me off without beating me up? Taking the money, Finn Taylor simply left. As he reached the door, he said, some dogs are really basts. I'm afraid they'll come back to cause trouble if you don't break their legs. With that, he turned to leave. Weston Shaw was initially still in a daze, not understanding what Finn Taylor had meant. It was only after a while that he realized that the latter had called him a bast dog. After leaving Weston Shaw's house, Finn Taylor headed to Corinne James's house. At that moment, Henry James and Serene Edwards were at home. Finn Taylor barged in without knocking on the door. Who allowed you in? Get out. Henry James flared up the moment he saw Finn Taylor as he thought about how the other had humiliated him, and he tried to chase him away. I'm not here as a guest. I'm here to inform you of something. What? Henry James was fuming. Finn Taylor isn't welcome here at all. It's humiliating that this piece of trash is even in my house. Your daughter did something. Upon hearing Finn Taylor's words, Henry James's heart pounded. He knew what the other was talking about. Could it be that Finn Taylor is here to take his revenge because of what happened? Your daughter paid Brother Dan to teach Yvette a lesson. Serene Edwards was still in the dark about this, so there was visible shock on her face. They're cousins and relatives, but your daughter was so vicious. Henry James was certain that their plan had succeeded. So what? Yvette Larson was the one who went against Corinne first. My daughter was only taking her revenge. What's wrong with that? Finn Taylor was speechless. Like father, like daughter. This family is hopeless. You're right, it's just revenge, so it's no big deal. Chloe Yates knows Brother Dan. He's her lackey, so nothing happened to Yvette. Finn Taylor sauntered over. Disappointment was plastered all over Henry James's face. It looked like he was upset that Yvette Larson was fine. But your daughter is still being held hostage by Brother Dan. I've asked Brother Dan. He has over 50 men. He'll give Corinne James to his men to have a good time. At that, Henry James's face drained of all color. How dare you do that, Finn Taylor? Why are you getting so worked up? Weren't you the one who said that it's just revenge and that it's no big deal? Of course, Henry James couldn't care less whether he had indeed said such words earlier. He swung his fist toward the other but was kicked several meters back by him. You'd better save it, you old man. Let me tell you something. We'll start counting from today $150,000 a day. I'll ask Brother Dan to hand your daughter back as soon as you fork out the money. It'll be $150,000 today, $300,000 tomorrow, and $450,000 the following day. I'll be waiting for your call. With that, Finn Taylor turned to leave. Henry James and his wife were left paralyzed on the ground, their faces as pale as ghosts. They knew full well what kind of person Brother Dan was. What their daughter would be subjected to at his hands was well beyond their imaginations. $150,000. I only need $150,000 today. We have to get that as soon as possible, otherwise, we won't have any money tomorrow. The longer we delay, the more money we'll need, and the more Corinne will suffer. Of course, Henry James's family didn't have $150,000. Yet, his daughter would be in grave danger if he didn't hand over the money. Besides, the danger would only intensify with time. It was a dead end. At the same time, Brother Dan had taken both Weston Shaw and Corinne James away. Without Finn Taylor's orders, he wasn't going to let them go. By now, Henry James's and Karen James's families were in a panic. After making several calls, the two families had managed to gather about $100,000. However, they still needed another $50,000. Left with no other choice, they decided to approach the old lady together. The latter was the family head, as well as the two children's grandma. She had the obligation to fork out that money. At that moment, the old lady Lucy Williams was enjoying a cup of tea at home. She cared very much about her own health. But just then, her younger daughter and son's families rushed into her house in a frenzy. Hey, what's going on? Lucy Williams was confused. What are they doing? Mom, I'm begging, please save Corinne. Weston as well. Mom, please save Weston. He's your only grandson and the hope of the James family. Lucy Williams's gaze hardened. I have never favored boys over girls. I'm not going to hand the family over to Weston just because he's the only male in the family. Besides, I'm not even sure of my grandson's character. Perhaps the James family might crumble and fall apart in his hands. However, Weston is still my grandson no matter what. I can't just sit back and watch if something has happened to my grandson. Slow down. What happened? By now, the old lady could tell that something had really happened to her grandchildren. Finn Taylor got someone to kidnap Corinne and Weston. He instructed them to break Weston's legs and even. The old lady was curious. And what? Send Corinne to 50 men for them to play with her. He even said that he wanted $150,000 before he'd release them. It'll be $150,000 today, $300,000 tomorrow, and $450,000 the following day. Mom, I'm begging you. Please save Corinne. Clang. The teacup in the old lady's hands fell to the ground and broke into countless shards. How did things get to this stage? The old lady was no fool. After a moment of shock, she realized that something was amiss. Although there had been a misunderstanding between Finn Taylor, Corinne, and Weston previously, they've already resolved it. Given my understanding of Finn Taylor, he wouldn't try to take revenge on them. But seeing how vicious he was now, she was sure that her grandchildren must have done something. Tell me, what did they do? Mom, Henry James stuttered, not knowing what to say. Karen James lowered her gaze, remaining silent. Fine, if you still want to keep secrets from me, you can leave. I'm not going to interfere in this matter. I'll talk. Corinne and Weston hired Brother Dan to kidnap Yvette and pay her. Slap. The old lady slapped her son viciously. She was fuming. Corinne and Weston are my grandchildren, but isn't Yvette my granddaughter too? It's normal for a family to get into arguments at times, but they've gone overboard. Mom, we know we're wrong. Besides, Yvette is fine. Call Linda, beg her and get her to ask Finn Taylor to let Corinne and Weston go. The old lady sighed constantly but eventually made the call to her eldest daughter because of her children's pleas. Linda James had no idea what had happened. All she knew was that Finn Taylor had saved her and her daughter. Just then, the old lady called. Mom, what's up? Linda, am I still your mom? Yes, why? Good then. Ask Finn Taylor to release Corinne and Weston. We're a family, so why do we have to go so far? On the other end of the call, Linda James chuckled. Her laugh sounded so eerie that it scared even her mother. Mom, you're really a good mother. When I return to the old residence with Yvette, Kareem James and Weston Shaw got a whole bunch of people to kidnap us. You didn't even ask how we were doing. The first thing you said was to let them go. Great. You're really amazing." With that, Linda James hung up. This left Lucy Williams stunned. She had never expected her eldest daughter to hang up on her. "What did she say, Mom?" Henry James rushed up. She hung up. At that, both Henry James and Karen James were dumbfounded. "What are we going to do?" "Mom, was that from the old lady?" Finn Taylor couldn't help but ask when he saw his mother-in-law picking up a call. "That's right. How did you know?" Finn Taylor glanced at the clock and chuckled. "It's about time. Let's go, Mom." "Where are we going?" "The James family's old residence." The James family had completely disregarded Yvette Larson's family. They hadn't even bothered to inform her family about the old lady's birthday celebrations. They had thought that Finn Taylor wouldn't take it to heart, but he did. To stand up for Yvette Larson, he was going to crush the entire James family under his feet. And where would be better to do that than the James family's old residence? Only by getting them to apologize where all their ancestors were would Finn Taylor's anger dissipate. As such, Finn Taylor brought his wife and parents-in-law to the James family's old residence. "Mom, where's the ancestral shrine? Take us there." Linda James nodded and led the way. "Dad, go in and take 4 chairs out. We'll sit right here." Francis Larson agreed at once. Very quickly, he moved 4 chairs out in front of the ancestral shrine. The family of 4 had their backs toward the ancestral shrine. "Mom, call the old lady and tell her that we're at the ancestral shrine at the old residence. If she still wants to see her precious grandchildren, she'd better come over right now." Linda James had no idea what her son-in-law was up to, but she naturally wasn't going to raise any objections after having witnessed what he was capable of. She simply made the call and conveyed Finn Taylor's message. She didn't say anything more. As for the old lady, she was taken aback the moment she received the call. "What's wrong, Mom?" Linda called and said that they're waiting at the ancestral shrine at the old residence. "They want us to meet them there." "Why are they there? What shall we do? Should we head there?" The James family's faces were all sour. They had no clue what to do, but there was only one solution to their problem: go to the ancestral shrine at the old residence. As such, the entire James family set off. Ellipsis. The James family's ancestral shrine. Finn Taylor's family of 4 was relaxed as they sat there in the sun. "Mom, don't say a thing when they turn up later," Yvette Larson instructed her mom, who merely nodded. To be honest, she was extremely curious what Finn Taylor was going to do to the rest, but she remained silent. Before long, a few cars arrived at the James family's old residence. More than a dozen people got out of the cars one after another. The James family had arrived. They headed straight for the ancestral shrine. As for Finn Taylor's family, they sat up straight in their chairs. Even when faced with more than a dozen people, the family didn't back down. "Linda James, you've gotten so bold. How dare you hang up on Mom?" Henry James lashed out the moment he arrived. "Oh, Mom, how nice. Let me ask on my mother-in-law's behalf then. Do you really think of Linda James as your daughter and Yvette Larson as your granddaughter?" Finn Taylor's straightforwardness stunned Lucy Williams. Nevertheless, she answered, "Of course. No matter what, Linda will always be my daughter, and Yvette will always be my granddaughter." "Good. Since you think so, how do you think we should deal with the people who tried to kidnap your daughter and granddaughter?" Lucy Williams naturally knew full well who her grandson-in-law was talking about: Kareem James and Weston Shaw. If they were talking about anyone else, the old lady would have demanded harsh punishment. However, she couldn't afford to say so now. "We have to see why they did that in the first place." "Why? All right, why don't you analyze it for me? Why do you think Kareem James and Weston Shaw got someone to teach your daughter and granddaughter a lesson?" The old lady had never expected Finn Taylor to be this straightforward. This put her in a tough spot. "Sigh, we're a family. Finn Taylor, why don't you let them go first? I'll definitely teach them a lesson on Yvette's behalf." With no other choice, the old lady could only use this strategy. "Let them go? Well, haven't they told you that I'd let them go on certain terms?" Hee. Perhaps it was because he felt emboldened by his mother's presence that Henry James lashed out. "Finn Taylor, don't test our limits. Are you really not letting them go? You're asking for $150,000 a day. Where am I supposed to get that money?" "Oh, how much do you have then?" Henry James sighed in exasperation. $100,000. All right, press on. You're only short of $50,000. Can't you fork out some money, old lady?" The old lady was full of disbelief as she glared at Finn Taylor. "Are you trying to drive me to my grave? Why don't you just kill me? I don't want to live anymore. Finn Taylor casually whipped out a dagger, and he placed it in front of the old lady. If you take your own life, I'll let them go. His words drained the old lady's face of all color. Death. She naturally didn't want to die. It would be such a pity to die for those unfilial grandchildren of hers. Finn Taylor, I'm still Linda James's mother and Yvette Larson's grandma no matter what. Can't you let them go on that account? Silence. There was pin-drop silence. Finn Taylor stood up and turned around. Then, he turned to the ancestral shrine. Fine, I'll let them go on account of the ancestors here. Hearing his words, Henry James and Karen James were overwhelmed with emotions. This was the first time Finn Taylor was compromising. It seemed like there was hope of Kareen James and Weston Shaw being released. Old lady, I'm only agreeing to let them go on account of the James family's ancestors. But tell me, how do you plan on atoning for your sins now that you've raised such unfilial dogs in your family? The old lady was dumbfounded. Finn Taylor is still demanding a solution. Lucy Williams glared at her children. The pair looked terrible. Henry James bowed toward Yvette Larson. Yvette, it's my fault for not raising Kareen well. Karen James bowed as well, but she didn't say anything. Finn Taylor shut his eyes and remained silent. The atmosphere was stiff. The old lady understood that Finn Taylor was displeased with their insincerity. Kneel down. Although the old lady couldn't bear for her children to do so, she had no other choice. Henry James's eyes were filled with disbelief. Mom, I'm his elder. Why should I kneel down to him? Slap. The old lady slapped her son viciously in the face. You've spoiled your daughter rotten, it's all your fault. I'm asking you to kneel down. How dare you question me? Helpless, Henry James bent his knees slightly until he fell on his knees. With that, his dignity had completely been trampled on. The old lady glanced at Finn Taylor, begging with her gaze. That's not enough, he spat out with disinterest. The old lady kicked Karen James, but the latter was indignant. She didn't want to admit defeat to her sister's family. Yet, she couldn't afford to remain stubborn for the sake of her son's safety. In the end, she, too, kneeled down. That's not enough. Finn Taylor didn't change his stance. Lucy Williams's expression hardened. Henry is kneeling, and so is Karen. They've cast aside their dignity to kneel down to Finn Taylor's family. What more does he want? The old lady eventually ordered, kneel down, all of you. Serene Edwards, Larry Shaw, and the others all fell to their knees. Francis Larson nearly fell off his chair. Over the past few decades, the James family has always looked down on our family. Although they weren't as harsh as they had been toward Finn Taylor, I know full well that they look down on my family. The younger ones have never treated me respectfully before, yet all those who look down on him are now kneeling before me today. Henry James, Karen James, Serene Edwards, Larry Shaw, didn't you all think very highly of yourselves? You're still kneeling before me today. To be honest, it wasn't just Francis Larson who felt overwhelmed. Even his wife felt the same way. She was the eldest in the family, but they had never treated her with respect. In fact, they hadn't even bothered to inform her about their mom's birthday celebrations. They didn't think of her as their elder sister at all. But today, Finn Taylor had gotten back at all of them on her behalf. Yvette Larson grasped her husband's hands tightly, and all eyes shot toward the latter. Finn Taylor finally opened his eyes. His gaze was locked on the old lady Lucy Williams. It's still not enough. Everyone in the James family understood exactly what Finn Taylor meant by that. That was why they didn't even dare to take a deep breath. All eyes were pinned on Lucy Williams. Finn Taylor, you're too much. Do you really expect an old woman like me to kneel before you? Finn Taylor sneered. Do you think that you hold no responsibility in this matter? They're all sons and daughters of the James family. Linda James couldn't even attend your birthday celebrations. Although the two families hid it from you, didn't you tacitly agree to it? They're all your grandchildren, but you didn't even ask about Yvette in your call. I thought that you'd at least say something in person, but you didn't even ask about her. But look at how concerned you are about Kareen James and Weston Shaw. You're even willing to come all the way here for their sakes. The James family looks harmonious, but there are deep-seated grudges that led to where we are today. And you're the culprit. Lucy Williams's face was flushed red. She wanted to beat Finn Taylor up, but Henry James spoke up the moment she moved. Mom. Karen James spoke up too. Mom, if you don't kneel down today, your grandson will be done for. Lucy Williams shook her head in disappointment. She regretted everything. The moment she said those words, she knew that she'd made a mistake. Just like what Finn Taylor said, I have made a grave mistake. It's true that Corrine and Weston hold special places in my heart. Thud, the old lady fell to the ground. She had kneeled down. The atmosphere was tense. Linda James, Francis Larson, and Yvette Larson stole glances at Finn Taylor. Even they were curious about what he was going to do. Thud, 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 Finn Taylor drummed his fingers on the chair repeatedly. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Finn Taylor picked up his phone and said only 3 words, "Let them go." Ellipsis. By the time Henry James's family returned home, Corrine James was already there. Her clothes were disheveled, and there were scratches all over her body. Her gaze was empty, and her lips were quivering. Seeing Henry James walk in, she retreated in fear. The former's heart broke when he saw his daughter in this state. Yet, he knew that he'd never be able to get revenge for his daughter, not in this lifetime. Ellipsis. When Karen James's family returned home, they were greeted by the sight of their son Weston Shaw lying on the ground with all his limbs broken. Weston Shaw was destined to spend the rest of his life bedridden. It'd be a challenge to even sit on a wheelchair. Ellipsis. As the old lady Lucy Williams returned home, she was still in a daze. She dug out a photo of her late husband and sobbed. Tears fell on the photo frame. "Old man, I was wrong. We were wrong from the very beginning. We forgot who the old master of the Larson family was. He didn't even falter when going against the Sanders family of San Francisco. He managed to lead his family away from the Sanders family without fear that they would come at him. How could he have made a wrong call? That was his last command before passing on. Even when everyone else was against it, he insisted that Finn Taylor marry into the family. How could Finn Taylor possibly be bad? Everyone thought that it was Finn Taylor who brought the family bad luck when the old master passed on 3 days after their wedding, but the old master's days were already numbered. He probably endured it so that he could witness the wedding. Now, Lucy Williams understood everything. She had lived a glorious life as a prominent figure too. Today, all her doubts had been answered. Yet, it was all too late. Ellipsis. Finn Taylor's family of 4 returned to San Francisco after having one last meal with Chloe Yates. Yvette Larson stretched lazily upon reaching, and her husband chuckled sinisterly. "What are you laughing at?" "Nothing much." As soon as Finn Taylor finished his sentence, someone knocked on their door. "Huh, who'd be able to knock on our door?" Number 1 Pacific Heights was private property, and outsiders weren't allowed in unless they were of the same status as the owner of Number 1 Pacific Heights. As soon as Yvette Larson opened the door, she spotted a besuited young man. "Hello, Ms. Yvette Larson. Let me introduce myself, I'm Willis Roon." With that, he handed her a name card. Yvette Larson took a glance at it. "Professional investor. I don't think I know anyone like that. Why would he be looking for me?" "May I enter, Ms. Larson? Finn is at home. I have nothing to worry about." Yvette Larson gave it some thought. "Come on in." Willis Roon entered, and Finn Taylor came out of the room as well. The two nodded at each other, acting as though they didn't know each other. "Ms. Larson, our company acquired a company, the Larson Corporation, just yesterday." Yvette Larson was dumbfounded. The Larson Corporation? Did Quince Larson sell the company? But that makes sense. Without the Sullivan family, the Larson Corporation's business will only go downhill. It'd be better to sell it now since it'll go bankrupt eventually. With the proceeds, Quince Larson will probably live well for a long time. "Ms. Larson, you were once the Larson Corporation's CEO and performed exceedingly well in the project with the Sullivan family. We've decided to hire you as the Larson Corporation's chairman. Will you accept our offer?" As Willis Roon said so, he took out a contract from his briefcase. It was perfectly normal for an investor to find someone else to manage the company for him. However, Yvette Larson had never expected herself to be the one managing the company. She glared at Finn Taylor and asked, "Does this have anything to do with you?" "Huh, they acquired the company yesterday." Finn was with me in Los Angeles when they acquired the company. Besides, I have seen the shareholders of the Larson Corporation. Willis Roon holds 100% of the company's shares. It seems like Finn isn't lying to me. After giving it deep thought, Yvette Larson eventually signed off on the contract. "We'll be holding our first meeting the day after tomorrow. Please remember to attend it, Ms. Larson." After sending Willis Roon off, Yvette Larson nearly leapt 3 meters into the air as she held the contract. "Dear, I'm going to be the Larson Corporation's chairman." "Yes, you're awesome." Yvette Larson glanced at her husband, feeling as though there was something amiss in her husband's words. However, she couldn't put her finger on it. "Mr. Taylor, can you save my sister?" Just then, Diane Taylor rushed out. She fell to the ground in front of Finn Taylor, snot and tears streaming down her face. Fuck, what's going on? He quickly helped the other up. The young girl is so obedient, she always listens to whatever I say. Besides, she's a tailor too. I've always thought of her as a sister. Tell me what's going on. You don't have to kneel down. Finn Taylor quickly supported Diane Taylor to her feet. Yvette Larson brought some tissue over for the young girl to wipe away her tears. Tell me what happened. My sister is working in San Diego, and she said something happened at work. When I asked her what happened, she refused to tell me and only sobbed. I'm really afraid and worried for her, Mr. Taylor. Can you save my sister? I thought that something major had happened. Finn Taylor laughed. It'll be fine. I'll go to San Diego tomorrow and settle it for your sister. Finn Taylor looked at his wife and shrugged helplessly. The Larson Corporation was holding their first ever meeting after the acquisition the following day. Finn Taylor had intended to help his wife out, but it now seemed like she had to attend it alone. I'll be fine. Help Diane settle her sister's matter. The Larson family won't be able to do anything to me. All right, I'll send 2 bodyguards over with you. Finn Taylor didn't think much of the rest, but he was sure that Quince Larson and Eleanor Larson were capable of anything. He was still slightly worried about them. As such, it was necessary for him to send backup with his wife. The next day, Finn Taylor picked up his Rolls-Royce Phantom from Hunter Sullivan and drove out. Since he was going to use his power to suppress others, he would go all out. San Diego was a city by the coast and was one of the most beautiful cities to visit. It was also one of the most contested areas. The Genesis Corporation in San Diego. Lindsay Taylor was being surrounded by several girls in the washroom. Bitch, do you think you're that great? How dare you snatch my boyfriend? Come on, let's fight it out. Sister Minnie, why are you still trying to reason it out with her? I think you should just strip her and take photos to post on the company's notice board. The young girls couldn't help but burst out into laughter when they heard that. As for Lindsay Taylor, her face fell. Minnie Jensen, I didn't seduce your boyfriend. He tried to rape me. Are you really going to try to kill me? Minnie Jensen chuckled. Oh, do you think you have the right to talk to me? Beat her up. As soon as Minnie Jensen finished her sentence, the girls were about to beat the other up when someone threw the door open. A man rushed in and shoved everyone surrounding Lindsay Taylor to the ground. As for Minnie Jensen, she took a slap to the face. That man walked up to Lindsay Taylor and helped her up. You're Lindsay Taylor, right? Yes, your sister asked for my help. Don't worry, nobody will be able to do anything to you with me around. With that, Finn Taylor helped Lindsay Taylor out of the washroom. The car engine started, and the pair slipped away, leaving Minnie Jensen and her gang gritting their teeth there. Even they had never sat in a Rolls-Royce Phantom, yet that bitch Lindsay Taylor had. Tell me, what's going on? As she sat in the car, Lindsay Taylor couldn't help but feel that everything was surreal. Did Diane really ask you to help me? Of course, I'm a tailor too, and you can call me Brother Finn. It was only then that Finn Taylor realized just how beautiful the young lady in front of him was. She was 1.75 meters tall and had a petite oval face that held a pair of black glasses. She looked young and sprightly. That woman just now was Minnie Jensen. Her boyfriend's name is Harry Jones. His family is rich, and he stood in my way at the staircase that day. He tried to molest me and even pay me. I punched him and escaped. Rumors started spreading in the company the next day, saying that I tried to seduce Minnie Jensen's boyfriend. Now, Minnie Jensen is trying to stir up trouble for me, and the company is even trying to fire me. Finn Taylor couldn't help but sneer. He patted his car. Does Harry Jones drive a Rolls-Royce Phantom? Lindsay Taylor shook her head. No, he drives a BMW. All right then, he's not as amazing as your brother, let me handle him. The chairman's office of the Genesis Corporation. The chairman Sean Klein glanced at Harry Jones. Don't worry, Harry, it's no big deal, I'll be able to settle it in no time. Harry Jones's family was a prominent family and held great power. They had ties with the Genesis Corporation, and their families went way back. This time, Harry Jones had even offered a huge amount of money to fire an ordinary employee. Of course, he naturally agreed to that request. Mr. Klein, I want that bitch's reputation to be destroyed. Don't worry, it's a trivial matter. Just as the pair was talking, someone kicked the door to the chairman's office open. Finn Taylor barged in. Oh, you guys are having a nice chat. What are you preparing to do to Lindsay Taylor? Sean Klein and Harry Jones glanced at Finn Taylor cautiously. Who are you? Me, I'm Finn Taylor, Lindsay Taylor's brother. TCH. The pair had been frightened just moments earlier, afraid that their plan had been exposed. but it turned out that it was just a relative of that poor girl. They breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Kleine, right, do you want to conduct an investigation on this? Why would a hard-working employee do such a thing? Do you think it could be a case of a second-generation heir bullying a poor girl? Sean Kleine slammed the table, disregarding Finn Taylor's words. Are you the chairman, or am I the chairman? I've already conducted my investigations. It was Lindsay Taylor who flouted the company's rules and did something that ruined our company's reputation. It's my prerogative to fire her. Applause. Finn Taylor couldn't help but applaud Sean Kleine's shamelessness. All right, I hope that you'll say the same at the meeting. Sean Kleine could have fired an employee by just saying so. But because Harry Jones had been punched by Lindsay Taylor, he had asked Sean Kleine to hold a meeting. He wanted the entire company to know exactly what Lindsay Taylor had done. He wanted Lindsay Taylor to leave the company in humiliation. He wanted her to know how foolish it was to offend a young master like him. With that, Finn Taylor left. Neither Sean Kleine nor Harry Jones were the slightest bit shaken by Finn Taylor's vicious words. The meeting for the termination went as planned. All employees of the company were gathered in the hall as Sean Kleine and Harry Jones walked onto the stage. The pair looked down at the countless employees of the Genesis Corporation. Acting as though he was hurt, Sean Kleine announced, "Recently, something happened in our company. Someone flouted our rules and caused a huge uproar in the company. Harry Jones is an exemplary employee of our company. He's hardworking and performs well, but such an exemplary employee was harassed by a female employee. She's none other than Lindsay Taylor. Lindsay Taylor's behavior has left a stain on our company's reputation. As the chairman, I have the obligation and responsibility to uphold our company's name. Lindsay Taylor has to pay for what she's done. I hereby declare that." Hearing Sean Kleine's announcement, the employees broke into discussion. Minnie Jensen was delighted. "This is the moment I've been waiting for Lindsay Taylor's reputation to be trashed. Although I know the truth of the matter, that doesn't matter. Anyone who tries to get close to my boyfriend deserves death." But many of the employees were stunned. They knew Lindsay Taylor and knew how hardworking she was. There's no way such an exemplary employee would try to seduce a rich second-generation heir for the sake of money. It's simply impossible. Something is amiss. Hold up. Just then, someone interrupted Sean Kleine's speech. Everyone turned to see a man walking to the front with Lindsay Taylor. This man was none other than Finn Taylor. Fool, why is he here? Sean Kleine and Harry Jones couldn't help but curse inwardly at the sight. Very quickly, Finn Taylor arrived at the stage with Lindsay Taylor. "Sean Kleine, your lies sound quite convincing. But don't you think you should ask the involved party about what really happened that day?" "The involved party? Are you talking about the person who smeared the name of the Genesis Corporation?" Sean Kleine pointed at Lindsay Taylor, his tone menacing and hostile. "Mr. Kleine, don't you think you're jumping to conclusions? I found several witnesses who saw what happened that day. Don't you think you should listen to their statements too?" "Witnesses?" Sean Kleine glanced at Harry Jones. "Don't tell me this fool was retarded enough that he let others see him while he did that. It'll be humiliating if everything is exposed, but it doesn't seem right for me to refuse his request either." In the end, he chose to believe in Harry Jones. Besides, he could simply deny what Finn Taylor's witnesses said. "All right, bring them here." As soon as Finn Taylor finished his sentence, 4 men walked into the hall. These 4 men were all white-bearded old men. What does he mean by this? Why aren't the witnesses employees but 4 old men? While Sean Kleine was still deep in thought, the 4 men had already walked forward. The former then caught a clear glimpse of them. Isn't this Malcolm Landon?" "That's right, it's him. He's one of the 10 greatest businessmen in San Diego." "That's Victor Smith. He's my idol. He built his company from scratch and is now one of the top figures on the Forbes list. Look at that man beside Victor Smith. He looks like Philip Smith. Last year, he was the richest man in San Diego. Isn't that Jerry Wood? He's currently the richest man in San Diego." What? Did those 4 men really witness what happened? Sean Kleine grew pale the moment he spotted the 4 men. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, dripping down onto the ground. Isn't that man Lindsay Taylor's cousin? But I've done my checks on Lindsay Taylor. She's just an ordinary employee from the countryside. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to help Harry Jones either. But something seems amiss. "Mr. Kleine, do you still remember me? I'm Victor Smith." As soon as the men arrived on stage, Sean Kleine felt a chill run down his spine. While the other was speaking very politely, Sean Kleine couldn't help but feel terrified. He naturally knew just how vicious these men could get to reach where they were and just how many men had died at their hands. He was nothing when compared to them. "Sean Kleine, I heard that something which concerns your company's reputation happened. Coincidentally, the four of us were sitting in the cafe opposite playing chess and saw what happened. We're here to make our statements as witnesses. I don't think you'll mind, right? Sean Kleina very much wanted to curse and swear. There's no way they would have seen anything from the cafe, but I can't possibly say that. Not only can I not say that, but I even have to thank them for this. Thank you very much. I appreciate your kindness very much. I'm still a little confused with both sides telling me different stories, so I don't know the truth yet. I'm really grateful that the four of you are willing to help me put the pieces together to learn the truth. Sean Kleina was truly shameless. Earlier on, he had already spilled the truth. If not for Finn Taylor stopping him, Lindsay Taylor probably would have been fired by now. But now, he dared to say that the truth was still uncertain. Of course, the four men didn't expose him. Victor Smith glanced at Lindsay Taylor, then at Harry Jones. That's right, it was the two of you. I saw you guys clearly. This young lady was coming out with a book in her hands when this young chap tried to touch her. She dodged him, but he tried to hug her and even kiss her. In the end, she punched him. With just a few sentences, Victor Smith narrated the whole truth. This sent Sean Kleina into a fluster. What this old man said is completely different from what I said earlier. What, do you think that I'm bearing false witness, Mr. Kleina? Philip Smith laughed. False witness, I saw it too. Malcolm Landon nodded by the side. Me too. Jerry Wood was the only one left, was the top figure in the whole of San Diego. Jerry Wood glanced at Sean Kleina. Mr. Kleina, I can vouch for whatever Victor Smith just said. I saw it too. The moment Jerry Wood spoke up, the results were set in stone. Nobody could make a rebuttal. They would be going against Jerry Wood by doing so. Now, Sean Kleina's face was ashen. Mr. Kleina, aren't you going to do something about someone who ruined the name and reputation of your company? As soon as Jerry Wood said so, hundreds of eyes shot their gazes toward Sean Kleina. Everyone was waiting to see how he would deal with Harry Jones. The Jones family and the Kleina family were both second-tier families in San Diego. Because of his father's wishes, Harry Jones had joined Sean Kleina's company as a form of training. Of course, there was no way a rich second-generation heir would work hard. The moment he entered the company, he started dating Minnie Jensen, who was also a rich second-generation heir from the Jensen family. Then, he even started harassing the company's female employees. Lindsay Taylor was definitely not the first, but Sean Kleina had always turned a blind eye to these matters. Initially, everything had been fine until Lindsay Taylor blew the matter up. Now, things had spiraled downhill. Harry Jones, how dare you harass my female employees? As the chairman, I hereby declare that you've been fired. Sean Kleina turned to Jerry Wood, awaiting his approval. But the latter merely sneered. A lady's reputation is important. I think it's best that she receives an apology for this. Jerry Wood's words were obviously directed at Harry Jones, but the latter stubbornly stood there with an ashen face, refusing to apologize. Sean Kleina knew Jerry Wood all too well. If I don't force Harry Jones to apologize today, this will mark the end of the Jones family. I'm friends with Harry Jones's father, I can't just let Harry Jones commit such a foolish mistake. As such, he kneed Harry Jones, causing the latter to fall to the ground and into a kneel. Look, Mr. Wood, Sean Kleina tested. Jerry Wood patted the other on the shoulder, laughing. Mr. Kleina, you've done well by upholding the rules, but it's not perfect. I've done well, but it isn't good enough. Jerry Wood has made himself clear. Sean Kleina naturally knew exactly what the other was referring to. The other was clearly saying that he had led Lindsay Taylor down, yet he didn't kneel down. This is my company. Hundreds of employees are looking at me. I'll lose all authority and respect if I kneel down here today, but nor can I afford to offend these four men. All I wanted to do was fire Lindsay Taylor. Why would they want to interfere in such a trivial matter? That makes absolutely no sense. But eventually, Sean Kleina gave in. He went down on his knees. Lindsay Taylor, I was wrong. I'm kneeling down to ask for your forgiveness now. I took Harry Jones's bribe to frame you, I deserve death. I'll kowtow to you as an apology. With that, Sean Kleina actually kowtowed to the other. Seeing their boss's head hit the ground, the few hundred employees were dumbfounded. Nobody was more stunned than Minnie Jensen because she had bullied Lindsay Taylor too, but it didn't make any sense to her. Lindsay Taylor is nobody important. How could she command such power to gather those four men here? As Finn Taylor brought Lindsay Taylor away, the four men left as well. Sean Kleina stole a glance and clearly saw that Finn Taylor and Lindsay Taylor were walking ahead of the four old men. Even the richest man in San Diego and the once richest man of San Diego, Jerry Wood and Philip Smith, acted like Finn Taylor's lackeys. This could only mean that the young man had an even higher status than those two old men. Minnie Jensen had witnessed this sight too. As soon as the meeting ended, she escaped to the washroom to call her father, Arthur Jensen. She was in tears throughout the conversation. "Dad, I think I made a mistake." On the other end of the call, Arthur Jensen didn't take his daughter's words very seriously. "Oh, a mistake? What kind of mistake?" "Dad, I messed with someone I shouldn't have." "What do you mean?" Minnie Jensen then told her father about the whole incident involving Lindsay Taylor. Once he heard the story, Arthur Jensen was taken aback. Someone who can command prominent figures like Jerry Wood and Philip Smith. Who is he? And of all people, Minnie offended him. "That won't do. I have to apologize to him personally, or else our family might very well die without my knowledge." At the same time, Finn Taylor brought Lindsay Taylor to a restaurant for a meal. The former had ordered many dishes, delighting the young girl. Just like Diane Taylor, this young girl had grown up in poverty and had never eaten such a lavish meal. Seeing how ravenously she was gobbling down the meal, Finn Taylor couldn't help but chuckle. Just then, a well-dressed woman glanced over. Her gaze was filled with disdain. She probably looked down on people like Lindsay Taylor and felt that it was an insult to eat with someone like this here. However, she held her tongue. "Slow down, you're going to choke." Right at that moment, Arthur Jensen arrived with his daughter Minnie Jensen. The father and daughter rushed over, and Arthur Jensen immediately bowed down. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Taylor. My daughter was insensible. I'll apologize on her behalf." Paying no heed to him, Finn Taylor addressed a waiter, "Bring us another glass of milk tea." As soon as Arthur Jensen heard that, he rushed over to grab a glass of milk tea. But the moment he placed it on the table, Finn Taylor flung it to the ground. "How dare you touch my food with your filthy hands?" Arthur Jensen was stunned. He knew he had interfered in something he shouldn't have. He reached out to slap himself in the face, and he didn't spare any effort in doing so. The sound was proof of that. This scared that lady who was sitting at the next table. This can't be true. Arthur Jensen is a respected figure in San Diego. Who is this young man? Why would Arthur Jensen go so far just to apologize to him? Nonetheless, Finn Taylor acted as though he hadn't seen anything. He continued with his meal with Lindsay Taylor. Finally, the pair finished their meal after half an hour. Without sparing Arthur Jensen a glance, they left. Only after the two of them had left the restaurant did Arthur Jensen stop slapping himself. By now, his face had already swelled up. "Dad, has he forgiven me?" Minnie Jensen feared for her life as she glanced at her father's face, and she couldn't help but stutter. Arthur Jensen sat there, void of all energy. Eventually, he spat out, "He didn't embarrass me in public, and that means that he won't pursue the matter." That's how people like him are, but this is far from being enough. There's no way Lindsay Taylor will be able to work at that company anymore. You'll have to hire her and offer her the position of manager in a department of her choice. Her annual salary has to be $450,000 at the very minimum, and it'll be open to discussion if she's unhappy about it. Arthur Jensen's conditions didn't just stun the customers around them. Even his daughter Minnie Jensen was dumbfounded. A minimum salary of $450,000 with room for negotiation. That's more than what the CEO of our company earns. We're not hiring her but giving her free money. Of course, someone as experienced and cunning as Arthur Jensen wouldn't make useless transactions. Based on his daughter's description, even the top man in San Diego, Jerry Wood, was a lackey to that young man. He couldn't even imagine just how powerful that young man was. If he could win the favor of such a prominent figure with just $450,000, what he would get in return wouldn't be a measly $450,000. It could be 4.5 million, 45 million, or even more. Minnie Jensen, you were the one who created this problem. If you fail to hire Lindsay Taylor, don't even think of calling me your dad. I don't care what you do as long as you manage to hire her. Don't be afraid to humble yourself. If you need to, kneel down and slap yourself. Once you learn to kneel down to earn your keep, I'll hand the company over to you. Minnie Jensen didn't really understand what her father was getting at, but she took them to heart. Ellipsis. Finn Taylor sent Lindsay Taylor back to her rented apartment before deciding to take a walk around. San Diego wasn't a bad place. Finn Taylor didn't have much power here. The only reason those old men had been willing to listen to him was due to Peregrine Hall, not him. He had given an order as Master Peregrine. However, Finn Taylor had never cared for that title. That belonged to the Taylor family, not him. This was why Finn Taylor wanted to change up the powers around here. Currently, the business circle in San Diego was split into two factions. One was led by Jerry Wood, top man in San Diego. The other was led by Philip Smith, who was once the top man in San Diego. The two factions had been at loggerheads for years, but neither had taken the victory. Now that Finn Taylor was here, it was time for one to emerge as the victor. What Finn Taylor valued was loyalty. He would see which of these two dogs would be more loyal to him. Perhaps he would even choose a new dog if neither was loyal to him. "Let me treat you to a drink, sir." Finn Taylor was contemplating his life while sitting in the car when a beautiful lady walked up. She leaned against the window, clearly exposing her cleavage. It was in Finn Taylor's direct sight. "All right, but I have to send my boss home first." This lady's name was Lucy Lawrence. She had only walked over because she had seen Finn Taylor driving the Rolls-Royce Phantom. "But he's just a chauffeur." "Fuck, how dare a lowly chauffeur act like a boss? How dare he stare at my cleavage?" Lucy Lawrence stormed off. What a fool who doesn't know how to cherish good things. Before the lady could leave, a man walked over while nagging. "Brother, why are you so honest? Look at how she is. She's just a pampered plastic bitch. You could pretend that you're ignorant and do that with her first. What could she do to you if you pretend not to know after doing that?" Finn Taylor had to admit that this man was absolutely right, but he couldn't be sure that the woman wouldn't beat him up after finding out the truth. As expected, Lucy Lawrence was displeased as soon as she heard that. "Mossback, who are you calling a pampered and plastic bitch?" Mossback pointed at Lucy Lawrence very seriously and said, "You, of course. Aren't you?" Lucy Lawrence gritted her teeth and had to suppress the urge to punch the other. "Hold on, you look different here too. Don't tell me that this is fake too." As Mossback said so, he pointed at the other's chest. Lucy Lawrence's face soured as though she had been exposed. "Scram. Fine. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Mossback then slid into the front passenger seat of Finn Taylor's car. "Wait, why did you get into my car?" Finn Taylor was confused. "I don't even know the guy." "Fuck, I supported you, bro. I'm about to be beaten up by her. Aren't you going to save me? Hurry up and drive." Mossback was in such a hurry that he nearly stepped on the accelerator himself. Afraid that he'd stir up trouble, Finn Taylor decided to drive off first. Finn Taylor glanced at Mossback. This guy appeared out of the blue. He thinks that he's acted well, making the meeting seem casual and random, but I can tell from just one glance that he has something up his sleeves. This man had purposely spoken up for me to get into my car. To put it simply, this man is trying to get close to me. There has to be a reason for that. For some unknown reason, an image of his grandpa flashed through his mind as he glanced at Mossback. Is he related to Grandpa? Finn Taylor had no idea why such a thought would come to mind, but this meant that he had to be wary of the other. A short introduction. "I'm Ginger." "Oh, Mossback." Finn Taylor tried to provoke the other since a person would only show their true self when they were angry. But what he had never expected was for Ginger to give such an exaggerated response. "How did you know that my friends call me Mossback? I think we're really fated. I'll call you, bro, in the future." While Finn Taylor was stunned into silence, he knew that he had to be even more wary of the other. He's trying to get close to me by all means, without even caring about his own reputation. It seems like he has major plans. Ellipsis. 3 days ago, in a dilapidated temple in San Diego. An old monk looked at Ginger. "He's coming, I've set up a plot. He's coming soon." Ginger was kneeling on the ground. "Master, who are you talking about? You've been talking about him for 3 days, but you haven't told me anything about him." "He's a saint, but I said that he was a jinx decades ago, hoping to kill him. Alas, my words didn't change anything. He's starting to make a name for himself now. He's coming soon, you have to get close to him. You're fated to be enemies with him. Either of you must die. Remember that you have only one chance. He will never give you a second chance. Once he comes, find a way to become best buddies with him. He probably hasn't found a friend like that. Remember not to act rashly." As soon as the old monk finished his words, he shut his eyes and passed on. This old monk was the one who had told Frida Cameron that Finn Taylor was born to be a jinx while Donovan Taylor was born to be a saint. But he was dead now. His death had been so sudden, and his last words had been so mysterious. Ginger sobbed and left that dilapidated temple after burning his master. He then bumped into Finn Taylor. Now, he was even seated in the latter's car. Although he was chuckling and joking on the surface, he wasn't calm at all inwardly. "Master, is he the one my enemy? But he looks so ordinary. Is he just hiding his true abilities like I am?" Ginger didn't dare to act rashly, keeping his master's words in mind. Without full confidence, he wouldn't do anything. What's the truth behind my family background? Why did I grow up in the temple of great compassion? But why did Master offer me such lavish meals even when I was growing up in the temple, and who is he? What did Master mean by the birth of a saint and a jinx? Why am I fated to be enemies with him? Master, why did you leave me with so many doubts? Just as Ginger was still contemplating these questions, Finn Taylor stopped the car. Diddy bar, come on, Mossback, let's have a drink. Finn Taylor had brought Ginger here. There were only two scenarios where a person would reveal their true self. One was when they were angry, and the other was when they were drunk. Now, Finn Taylor was trying to make the other drunk. Ginger didn't seem the slightest bit annoyed by Finn Taylor's nickname for him. In fact, he acted as though he now knew the latter well and even addressed him as boss. It seemed like they were old friends. Boss, I don't have any money. You have to give me a treat. Finn Taylor seemed to take that name in stride too. He didn't even try to stop the other. Ginger thought that he had won, and his heart leapt with joy. How was he to know that Finn Taylor had other plans up his sleeves? Since the latter couldn't tell why the other was trying to get close to him, he would simply keep him near. At the very least, he would be able to see what the other wanted from him. The pair settled down in the bar and started drinking. Finn Taylor had been specially trained to hold his liquor by Maximus Bruegel. Now, he could easily handle any amount of liquor and could even control when he got drunk. He had everything under control. Ellipsis. After being cursed at by Mossback, Lucy Lawrence was indignant. She swore that she was going to take her revenge. As such, she looked for Nathan Smith, Philip Smith's son. He had once been the most prominent young master in the whole of San Diego. Although the title of richest man in the city wasn't his any longer, Philip Smith wasn't doing badly either. As such, Nathan Smith's lifestyle was still rather extravagant. Of course, Nathan Smith once had a fling with Lucy Lawrence. It was just that the former had lost his interest not long after it started. However, he had once visited Lucy Lawrence's rented apartment and seen her roommate's photo. Her name seemed to be Lindsay Taylor. Nathan Smith had quite a deep interest in that young lady and kept pestering Lucy Lawrence to introduce them to each other. Lucy Lawrence was no fool. She knew that Nathan Smith was no longer interested in her. The only thing that would interest him now would be news of Lindsay Taylor. As such, she wouldn't use her precious cards so casually. By now, Lucy Lawrence had arrived at Diddy Bar too. This was because Nathan Smith was there as well. The pair were seated in the VIP section upstairs. Brother Nathan, I was bullied today. You have to take revenge on my behalf. As she said so, she leaned into Nathan Smith's embrace. What's the matter? I met a retard who said that I was a pampered, plastic bitch. I haven't even undergone any plastic surgery, brother Nathan. I really love you. I'm not a pampered or spoiled princess. Nathan Smith felt only disgust when he heard that. She should know best whether she's spoiled or whether she's gone for plastic surgery. Of course, he wasn't going to voice his thoughts. He couldn't possibly admit that he had bedded a spoiled brat whose face was a result of plastic surgery. That'd be humiliating for Nathan Smith himself. Which idiot was that? I'll teach him a lesson for you. Speaking of which, when can I get to meet your roommate? At the mention of Lindsay Taylor, Lucy Lawrence was displeased. Lindsay Taylor isn't even as pretty as me. Why does he keep harping on that? Are all men like this? Do they only want the forbidden fruit? Brother Nathan, if you help me settle this matter, I'll be sure to help you out too. Just then, Lucy Lawrence spotted Finn Taylor and Mossback downstairs. Hey, why are they here? What's the matter? Why are you so worked up? Seeing Lucy Lawrence act that way, Nathan Smith was annoyed. It's embarrassing that she's acting this way. Since she's sitting with me, my reputation will be ruined too. Brother Nathan, it's them. Those are the men I was talking about. Nathan Smith glanced in the direction Lucy Lawrence was pointing. Realizing that they were two ordinary men, he walked over with several men behind him. At that very moment, Finn Taylor was wondering how much alcohol it would take to make Mossback drunk. Why does it feel as though he's been trained too? He can drink as much as me. Just then, Nathan Smith arrived with his men. Bast, Mossback, I've finally caught you. I'm going to beat you to death this time. Lucy Lawrence was fuming as she glared at Mossback. It seemed like the best way to hurt someone was to pick at the very faults that they didn't want to admit to, just like how Lucy Lawrence refused to admit that she was spoiled and that she'd gone under the knife. So you were the ones who bad-mouthed my girlfriend. Finn Taylor didn't try to protect the other, and he pointed at Ginger. He was the one. I didn't say a thing. He then turned to Lucy Lawrence. You can ask her if you don't believe me. Lucy Lawrence was taken aback, but Finn Taylor was telling the truth. Hence, she nodded. Oh, so you're the one who bullied my girlfriend. Beat him up. Just like that, Nathan Smith's men started teaching Mossback a lesson. As for Finn Taylor, he simply watched on by the sidelines, not intending to step in at all. He was waiting for Mossback to fight back. He believed that these people were no match for the other. However, Finn Taylor was disappointed. Mossback didn't even retaliate. It was as though he was just an ordinary person. How could he tolerate that? It seems like I've underestimated him. This is getting more interesting. After beating Mossback up, Nathan Smith's men finally left. Looking at the swollen face of Mossback, Finn Taylor couldn't help but burst out into laughter. Ha ha ha, you're such a poor thing, Mossback. The man in question looked at Finn Taylor indignantly. Boss, what kind of boss are you? Why didn't you stand up for me? Ha ha ha, alright, I have a party tomorrow. I'll bring you along for a meal. Mossback, who had initially been throwing a tantrum, immediately changed his tone after hearing Finn Taylor's words. It was as though nothing had even happened. He tidied his hair and asked, Boss, do I look alright? I haven't been disfigured, have I? Finn Taylor pushed him aside. You're still Mossback, alright. To that, Mossback didn't say a thing. Ellipsis. The next day, Finn Taylor and Mossback set off together and headed to San Diego Grand Hotel for a meal hosted by Jerry Wood. But what Mossback didn't understand was why Finn Taylor hadn't driven his Rolls-Royce there. Instead, he hailed a cab there. In the car, Mossback couldn't hold his curiosity in and asked, Boss, why didn't you drive the Rolls-Royce? He truly couldn't understand why the other had done so. But the moment he said that, the driver laughed before Finn Taylor could even answer. Ha ha, you guys have a Rolls-Royce. It was obvious that the driver thought they were simply making things up. Thus, Mossback quickly added, Yes, it's a Rolls-Royce Phantom. The driver laughed once again. That's impressive. Why don't you say that you're going to attend Jerry Wood's party? He's hosting one at San Diego Grand Hotel too. The driver had received a call to take his customers to San Diego Grand Hotel. This was why he had mocked them with that. Yes, how did you know? We're headed for Jerry Wood's party. Besides, Jerry Wood should think of it as an honor that we're even attending it. The driver felt as though he was going to die from laughter. This guy is such a liar, but he's not the first I've seen. There were many people like Mossback. They would wait at the door on the day of such events, waiting for the young master they knew to turn up. Then, they would simply blend into the crowd and enter alongside the rest. Usually, these young masters also would have no qualms about bringing these people in as long as they served them well. After all, it felt good to be served. Very quickly, the cab arrived in front of San Diego Grand Hotel. Finn Taylor and Mossback got out of the car. However, the driver didn't drive away just yet. He took out a cigarette and started smoking. He wanted to personally witness Mossback begging others so that he could expose the latter. Yet, what he saw was the hotel manager personally greeting the pair and even leading the way for them. Fuck, looks are deceiving, indeed. Now, the driver was feeling slightly regretful. Why didn't I choose to believe them just now? I could have gotten a name card from them. Perhaps that could have changed my life, but now, it's too late. This way please, Mr. Taylor. And who might this be? The manager looked at Mossback. Mossback, Finn Taylor casually introduced. However, the manager didn't dare to address the man by that nickname. He had experienced it too many times. Young masters often had derogatory nicknames for each other. It was naturally fine for the young masters to use the nicknames amongst themselves, but he would be tempting fate by using such a name. Mr. Ginger, Mossback introduced himself. This way please, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Ginger. The manager ushered the pair into the hotel. Then, he set off to deal with other matters. Mossback acted as though he had never been to such a grand event and picked up food from the table the moment he saw it. Finn Taylor pointed at the plate. Take a plate. Mossback acted as though he had suddenly been enlightened. Finn Taylor couldn't help but laugh inwardly. It's obvious that he's acting and that he's familiar with such events. Why is he trying to get close to me? Why does he have to act like he's poor? What is he hiding? Boss, you're so knowledgeable. I nearly embarrassed you. Just then, Finn Taylor and Mossback spotted someone. That someone had spotted them too. She rushed over. Fuck. Why am I so unlucky to bump into you two here? Of course, this woman was none other than Lucy Lawrence. She was a woman who relied on men to support her. There were countless rich young masters at such events, so there was no way she'd give up such a good opportunity. As such, she had already registered for the event a long time ago. By that, It naturally meant that she was a hostess. It was only natural that they needed women at such events too. Recruitment for these positions had started months before the party. There were many requirements, but women like Lucy Lawrence naturally knew them like the back of their hands. She had passed the test after spending the night with one of the recruiters. Now, she was here to lure a fish in. Fuck, we're the unlucky ones. Why do we meet this plastic bitch everywhere? It seemed like Mossback hadn't learned his lesson and still addressed Lucy Lawrence as a plastic bitch. This infuriated the latter. I dare you to say that again. I'll kill you right here. Finn Taylor chuckled and said, look around you. Are you sure you want to kick up a huge fuss here? Now that Finn Taylor had said so, Lucy Lawrence was so frightened that she backed down. That's right, this is Jerry Wood's party, so I'd be driving myself to my own grave if I stir up trouble here. However, Lucy Lawrence wasn't going to take this lying down. She picked up a wine glass and splashed the liquid all over Mossback. Security, security, I caught someone without an invitation. At that moment, the security officers were gathered together, enviously looking on at the various industries' big bosses. To be honest, they didn't have much to do here. After all, this was Jerry Wood's party. Anyone who dared to stir up trouble here would simply be seeking death. But just then, Lucy Lawrence's piercing scream broke the silence. The security team hurried over. Is anything wrong, miss? The two of them don't have invitations. They must have sneaked in, self-righteously declared Lucy Lawrence as she pointed at Finn Taylor and Mossback. Miss, please don't kick up a fuss here. This is Jerry Wood's party. Anyone present at this party had to be rich and well respected. Thus, the head of the security team naturally didn't dare to offend any of them. He couldn't possibly demand the other to present his invitation just because of what Lucy Lawrence had said. He could very well land himself in trouble. Let me show you something. With that, Lucy Lawrence took out her phone and played a video. It was one of Nathan Smith's men beating Mossback up. These two men are fraudsters. They were just beaten up by Nathan Smith's men yesterday. Nathan Smith was Philip Smith's son and was a prominent figure. Nonetheless, his status was no match for Jerry Wood's. Anyone that Jerry Wood invited was on the same level. For those who didn't want to turn up, they'd send their children here. However, there was definitely nobody of a much lower status. Of course, there was no way Jerry Wood would invite someone who Nathan Smith could easily bully. Please show me your invitation. As expected, the security officer immediately asked the pair for their invitations after seeing the video. While everyone would usually try not to kick up a fuss at Jerry Wood's party, he couldn't be sure. What if someone really sneaked in? That'd be my fault. I can't take this risk. I forgot to bring it, Finn Taylor said casually. I do have an invitation, but is it necessary? Is Jerry Wood going to refuse me entry at the door because I don't have an invitation? Brother, I'm warning you not to get involved. That woman is seeking death, so don't you try to stand up for her. It wasn't the first time Lucy Lawrence was stirring up trouble for Finn Taylor. Now, the latter was incensed. Given his personality, he wouldn't let her off easily. It was a foolish decision for that security officer to step in. Don't try to act friendly with me. Do you have an invitation or not? Take it out or scram. Your manager was the one who brought me in personally. You can ask the manager if I have an invitation. That security officer stared at Finn Taylor. He couldn't help but feel that the other was a fraudster. It looks like you really don't have an invitation. Since that's the case, please leave. Finn Taylor sighed. It's simple. All he has to do is ask the manager, so why is he such an idiot? Oh, what a coincidence. The buzz attracted quite a lot of attention from the other guests. Amongst them was Nathan Smith. Philip Smith and Jerry Wood had always been competitors. As such, the former had never attended Jerry Wood's parties. But Jerry Wood had no choice but to send an invitation to Philip Smith because their relationship hadn't deteriorated that far. Every year, Philip Smith would send his son in his place just to see how many attended Jerry Wood's parties. He had to know who was on his side and who was on Jerry Wood's side. When Nathan Smith heard the hubbub, he walked over, only to spot Finn Taylor and the other two. Hello, Mr. Smith. The security officer immediately stood straight up when he spotted Nathan Smith. Hello, what's going on, Mr. Smith? I think a rat sneaked his way in. I'm trying to get rid of him. Ha ha ha, a rat, isn't he a mossback? Come on, I'll handle it for you. Nobody knew what Nathan Smith was thinking, but he had offered to handle the matter personally. Very quickly, the bystanders understood the situation. Well, Jerry Wood can't compare to my dad. There are fraudsters who sneak into his party, and now, I'm the one who has to tie up loose ends for him. Not only was Nathan Smith scolding Jerry Wood with his words, but he was even praising his father. But nobody could rebuke him. Yet, no sooner had he tried to throw a punch than he was thrown to the ground as Finn Taylor kneed him in the stomach. That was utter humiliation for Nathan Smith, but he reacted quickly. Jerry Wood, oh Jerry Wood. Someone who's trying to kill you managed to sneak in, but you didn't even realize. See, you're not as good as my dad. Initially, Nathan Smith had been embarrassed that he had been thrown to the ground. Yet, he had turned the situation around by insulting Jerry Wood instead. Jerry Wood had arrived a long time ago, but he had simply observed the situation without stepping in. Everyone thought that it was because he was too embarrassed to say anything, yet a smile was plastered on his face. This was because there had always been two most prominent figures in San Diego. He had tried all means to change that, but it was to no avail. But today, Finn Taylor's incident had given him a breakthrough point. The Smith family had offended Master Peregrine. Great, your family is dead meat. That security officer stared wide-eyed as Finn Taylor shoved Nathan Smith to the ground. He couldn't help but panic, and he was about to call for backup to subdue Finn Taylor when he heard Jerry Wood shout, "Stop!" How timely. Any later, and the security officer would have started attacking Finn Taylor. Because that security officer was a worker at Jerry Wood's party, he could be considered to be Jerry Wood's man. "I'm sorry for arriving late, Mr. Taylor. I'm really sorry about what happened." Jerry Wood walked up to Finn Taylor and entered a 90-degree bow respectfully. "Oh, late, I think you're just in time." Finn Taylor knew exactly what Jerry Wood was up to. The latter would have cheated everyone else, but Finn Taylor would never be cheated so easily. "Mr. Taylor, I should have come earlier." Finn Taylor didn't argue with him and simply pointed at Nathan Smith. "Ask his father to come." Jerry Wood wanted to use him to topple the Smith family. Finn Taylor knew that well, and he was naturally going to let the other have his way. However, Jerry Wood would regret his decision. Upon hearing Finn Taylor's words, Jerry Wood's heart leapt with joy. He whipped out his phone and dialed Philip Smith's number. It was one he hadn't dialed in years. On the other end of the call, Philip Smith couldn't help but wonder why the other was calling him out of the blue. "Jerry Wood, why are you suddenly calling me? Your son is in trouble. It's only right for me to call you as a good friend." "My son is in trouble? Oh, I remember now. Isn't he at your party? What, is he drunk and trying to flirt with a woman?" "Philip Smith, oh Philip Smith. Your family is on the verge of crumbling, but you're still so unaware. Stop trying to threaten me. I won't be afraid even if my son tries to flirt with your wife." "Philip Smith, it'd be great if your son was only trying to fool around with women. Unfortunately, he beat someone up at my party." Philip Smith chuckled. "Ha ha ha, I thought something major happened. Is he dead? I'll cover that guy's medical costs. How much does he want?" Philip Smith was arrogant and tried to brush the matter off. "I think you're overestimating your son. He was no match for the other guy, and he's lying on the ground as we speak." "What, my son was beaten up? Tell that guy that I'll never let him off." Jerry Wood let out a sweet, saccharine smile. "All right, I'll convey your message to Mr. Taylor that Philip Smith will never let him off." With that, Jerry Wood hung up. When Philip Smith heard the words, "Mr. Taylor," he leapt up from his seat. Mr. Taylor, Master Peregrine Finn Taylor." Jerry Wood looked calm and cool as though nothing had happened. But in reality, he wasn't the slightest bit cool or calm inwardly. In fact, he was jumping for joy. "I have been competing for control over San Diego with Philip Smith for years, yet nothing has come out of it. However, everything is going to get resolved today." The moment Philip Smith received the call, he rushed down to San Diego Grand Hotel without a moment's hesitation. Seeing that his father had arrived, Nathan Smith finally felt at ease. "I've made countless mistakes and offended numerous people since I was young, but I have always been fine. As long as my father is around, nothing will happen to me." In elementary school, he had beaten his teacher up. In middle school, he had destroyed an internet cafe. In high school, he had slept with a female classmate. In college, he had almost set the school's lab on fire. These were all matters with great consequences in the eyes of many others, yet they meant nothing to him. And it was all because he had a powerful father, one who could absolve him of all responsibility in such incidents in San Diego. Today, his father was here again. Philip Smith, he's here." Someone let out a shriek. Who would have expected Philip Smith to involve himself in this matter personally? It has been years since Jerry Wood and Philip Smith started competing with each other. Could it be that the two of them are going to fight it out today? "Dad," Nathan Smith sobbed as he shouted for his father. Everyone present knew that he was simply acting, but every time Nathan Smith shed tears, his father would be sure to resolve the problem for him. Nathan Smith had already gotten used to it. Yet, Philip Smith walked up to his son and viciously slapped the latter in the face. He was so brutal that Nathan Smith's front teeth fell out as blood flowed down his sunken face. What's going on? Even the onlookers were confused by the situation. Kneel down. Apologize to Mr. Taylor. Philip Smith roared and ordered his son to get on his knees. However, Nathan Smith refused to give in. No, Dad, he was the one who hit me, so why should I apologize to him? Is it just because he's Jerry Wood's guest? Who is Jerry Wood anyway? Nathan Smith was a fool who still didn't understand just how impressive Finn Taylor was. In fact, he still felt that his father had only hit him because of Jerry Wood. It was because his father didn't want to ruin his relationship with Jerry Wood. But so what if he does? They've already been fighting for so many years. Did they really still care about that? Bast. Hearing his son's words, Philip Smith was fuming. On the other hand, Jerry Wood was delighted as he watched on by the sidelines. Good. Great. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. The more your family offends Finn Taylor, the worse off you'll all be. When that time comes, San Diego will be mine. Philip Smith fell to the ground on his knees, kowtowing over and over again until blood was all over his forehead. Please forgive us, Mr. Taylor. Please forgive us. Just then, two more men walked into the hall: Malcolm Landon and Victor Smith. They were both Philip Smith's men, and they barely matched up to Jerry Wood after forming a secret alliance. Someone had naturally told them about what was happening at San Diego Grand Hotel, and they had rushed over at once. After arriving, the two men fell in front of Finn Taylor as well. Mr. Taylor, although we work with Philip Smith, we didn't know anything about this. Please spare us, Mr. Taylor. Everyone thought that Malcolm Landon and Victor Smith would help the other out, yet they fell to the ground the moment they arrived. Everyone knew full well what this meant. Jerry Wood's VIP guest. Philip Smith, Malcolm Landon, and Victor Smith kneeling. It was evident that even these four families added up together couldn't even compare to this young man. Is there someone this influential in San Diego? Where's he from? San Francisco, New York, or Chicago? Nathan Smith had now finally realized that something wasn't right. He was a rich second-generation heir who could afford to offend others, but he was no fool. His father had already gone down on his knees. Then, even Malcolm Landon and Victor Smith had kneeled down without a word too. How could he not know what all this meant? From today on, Philip Smith's family will no longer exist in San Diego. The moment Finn Taylor announced his verdict, Philip Smith passed out. As for Malcolm Landon and Victor Smith, they heaved a sigh of relief because Finn Taylor hadn't mentioned their names. This meant that they had been spared. Of course, Finn Taylor paid absolutely no heed to Nathan Smith. His gaze fell on Jerry Wood instead. Kneel down. Those two words were like a bolt out of the blue. Aren't Jerry Wood and Finn Taylor on the same side? Besides, hasn't the former been helping Finn Taylor? Since the matter has already been resolved, why is Finn Taylor blaming Jerry Wood? What stunned the onlookers even more was that Jerry Wood actually fell onto his knees. Give me an answer in a week's time. Otherwise, the Wood family will no longer exist in San Diego either. With that, Finn Taylor left. Because of Finn Taylor's aura, nobody dared to say a thing. It was only a long time after Finn Taylor left that some finally dared to break out into silent whispers. Why is he picking on Jerry Wood? Are you dumb? Can't you tell what Jerry Wood just did? What? This was his party, and he had everything under control. Nathan Smith picked on that young man, but Jerry Wood only showed up after such a long time. Did he do that on purpose, or was he only doing it to provoke that young man? All the attendees of the party were prominent figures in San Diego. Although they had no idea who that young man was, it didn't take much for them to understand the situation. As such, someone blurted out the truth in no time. Even though Jerry Wood was on his knees, he was delighted by this result. From now on, I'll officially be the head of San Diego. Philip Smith won't even be able to live here. After seeing the situation, I'm sure Victor Smith and Malcolm Landon will run to my side too. Of course, there was nobody who felt more aggrieved than Nathan Smith. He bore no grudges against Finn Taylor. It was Lucy Lawrence's fault. That bitch was the reason I ended up in this state. But by the time he scanned the room, he realized that Lucy Lawrence had already fled the scene. Ellipsis. The beach, San Diego. Finn Taylor looked into the distance. Chicago held the Taylor family, as well as Peregrine Hall. He wasn't here just to help Lindsay Taylor out but also to deal with those from Peregrine Hall including Jerry Wood. All these people were simply loyal to Peregrine Hall, not Finn Taylor. As he left, he had mentioned something to Jerry Wood. He wanted the latter to make a choice between him and Peregrine Hall. He wanted an answer. San Francisco. The second day after Finn Taylor's departure was the appointment day of the Larson Corporation's new chairman. This day, the entire senior management of the Larson family had arrived at the office bright and early. These were the same people who were habitually late or simply didn't show up at work. After all, nobody could say a thing since they were part of the Larson family. But it was exactly because of their attitudes that the company had fallen into such a state, so much so that the company had to be sold. Now, the new chairman held the final say over their fates. If the new chairman didn't take a liking to them, they faced the danger of being fired at any time. That was why the Larson family was slightly panicked. After all, they didn't have any capabilities. How would they find another job after leaving this company? As such, they decided to arrive at the office bright and early to prove to the new chairman that they respected their jobs and could do them well. Even now, Quince Larson was still sitting in the chairman's position. He couldn't help but feel a tinge of sadness as he scanned the office. Single quote, everything here had once been mine. It's only because that bitch Yvette Larson resigned that the Sullivan family had terminated their collaboration. It was why I had eventually been forced to sell the company. I'm now the one in the most awkward situation in the Larson Corporation. Everyone else still holds their original positions and jobs before the arrival of the new chairman. Perhaps they will even get to keep their jobs after that. But as for me, I'd definitely be kicked out. But this is the Larson Corporation, and I'm the eldest grandson of the Larson family. How could I be forced out of this place? He was indignant. There is no way I'd let that happen. Just then, Eleanor Larson strolled into the office. Brother, Hunter Sullivan is here. Hunter Sullivan? Quince Larson was stunned. Why is he here? Does he want to work with our company again? Have I been fooled by him again? Quince Larson felt indignant. Hunter Sullivan has played a part in causing the state I'm in now. He rushed out of the office, just in time to catch the latter walking in. What are you doing here, Hunter Sullivan? Are you planning on working with our company again? Hunter Sullivan sneered. Work with your company? Do you know how much of an impact you guys have caused us by changing the person in charge and then selling your shares? I'm here to demand compensation. Compensation? Quince Larson was taken aback, but he couldn't help but rejoice inwardly. For some reason, he felt elated that the Larson Corporation was now in a rut. It seems like I'll be able to get something out of it. All right, that's good. You've lost so much. Make sure to get a good amount of compensation. Quince Larson's words drew ire from the Larson family. Quince Larson, what are you saying? You might not be the chairman any longer, but you're still the family head. How could you be so cold-hearted and hope that the company fails? That's right, Quince Larson. You've really disappointed me. Just look at what's become of the company after you took control. Yes, we thought that the company would go to greater heights with you leading us, but look at where we are now. The Larson family members vented their frustrations at Quince Larson. Hee, you're all a bunch of ingrates. I didn't shortchange any of you while I was the chairman, but you guys are going against me the moment I step down. I'm sure the new chairman will take all of this to heart. They'll see just how disloyal all of you are. The Larson family members flew into a frenzy the moment they heard Quince Larson's words. Quince Larson is such a bast. Now that he can't stay in the company, he's trying to drag us down too. Just then, Quince Larson looked toward the entrance of the office building, only to see someone Yvette Larson. Hey, why's that bitch here? It's strange to see my cousin turn up at the Larson Corporation since she has already resigned. So why is she here? Yvette Larson, who allowed you to come here? Quince Larson put on his airs as the chairman and questioned his cousin. Quince Larson, I heard that you had to sell the company within a month of becoming the chairman. Tisk tisk. Eleanor Larson provoked Quince Larson. He stepped up, wanting to punch his cousin. However, two men in black stepped forward before he could even do anything. Hey, I'm warning you to watch your actions. Otherwise, we'll beat you to a pulp. Quince Larson felt his knees shiver at the sight of the men. He backed down, not daring to provoke the other anymore. Yvette Larson, what are you doing here? What, can't I show up at the Larson Corporation? Yvette Larson seemed to let out a smile as she looked at her cousin. You already resigned. What are you doing here? Indeed, I resigned, but I'm still a Larson. Aren't you going to give me any money from the sale of the company? Quince Larson pursed his lips. Why did I even wonder why she came? It's obvious that she's here for money. Yvette Larson, Your family is so rich that you can stay in number 1 Pacific Heights. Can't you just let the rest of the family have this money? If not for your resignation, the Larson Corporation wouldn't have gone bankrupt either. How could you be so shameless as to ask for this sum of money? Quince Larson hated his cousin to her guts. Although he knew that Yvette Larson wouldn't be able to get much with the shares she had, he didn't want her to get a single cent. Besides, it was his cousin's fault that the company went bankrupt in the first place. His words evidently had their effect. As soon as the other Larson family members heard that, they added, "Yvette, look at what you've done. Why did you have to resign? Did you get anything from the company going bankrupt?" "Yes, I think you're to be blamed for this. Yvette Larson, how dare you ask for a share of the money? I think it's good enough that we're not asking you for any compensation." The Larson family took turns to take a stab at Yvette Larson. Quince Larson couldn't help but rejoice inwardly at this sight. Although he wouldn't gain much from this, it delighted him. It was enough for him as long as his cousin didn't do well. Just as Quince Larson thought that he had won the victory, Yvette Larson retorted, "Quince Larson, who are you to stand here and say such things to me?" Quince Larson was annoyed by that question. "Who are you to stand here to talk to me then?" Yvette Larson smiled and stretched out her arm, taking out a document from her bag. She flashed it to everyone in front of her. "I'm here as the new chairman of the Larson Corporation." The second Yvette Larson flashed that document, the entire room fell into dead silence. The faces of the Larson family members that had just criticized her seconds earlier fell and contorted. Of course, Quince Larson's expression was the most sour. "Everyone, gather in the meeting room. We're going to have a meeting." With that said, Yvette Larson turned on her heels and headed for the meeting room. As she walked past Quince Larson, she paused. Of course, there's no need for those who are no longer part of the company to show up. It was clear whom she was referring to: Quince Larson. "You already sold the company and are no longer the chairman of the Larson Corporation. What are you even doing here today?" Quince Larson gritted his teeth. He couldn't wait to charge up to Yvette Larson and punch her straight in the face. Yet, he had no choice but to suppress those urges out of fear as he glanced at the two muscular men standing by his cousin's side. The Larson Corporation's conference room. Yvette Larson sat at the head of the table, with the rest of higher management beside her, including Eleanor Larson. Seated at the other end of the table was Hunter Sullivan. "Ms. Larson, regarding the losses that the Sullivan family sustained, the Larson family will take full responsibility for it." Hunter Sullivan nodded in satisfaction before leaving. Of course, the Larson family members were displeased. "Yvette Larson, what do you mean by that? Did you just agree to pay him whatever he wants? Even if he wants $1 billion? Yvette Larson looked toward Eleanor Larson and smiled. "Firstly, the Larson Corporation is obliged to do so. Secondly, Quince has already sold the company. The Larson family no longer has the final say now. I'm the chairman, and I'll make the call. Thirdly, you've been fired, Eleanor. You don't have any right to continue kicking up a fuss here." Eleanor Larson was fuming, yet there was nothing more she could do. Before she could say anything, the two muscular men hauled her out. "Does anyone else want to say anything?" The moment Yvette Larson's voice sounded, she swept a chilling gaze across the room. All the Larson family members couldn't help but lower their eyes to avoid her piercing gaze. Now, not a single one of them dared to go against her. Ellipsis. San Diego. As soon as Lucy Lawrence escaped from San Diego Grand Hotel, she fled to her rented apartment. There, she met her roommate Lindsay Taylor. "Lindsay, do you have any money with you? Can you lend me some money?" Lucy Lawrence intended on leaving the city because the thought of staying terrified her. Even Philip Smith and the other old men were no match for that young chap. "What more me? Besides, that young man completely ignored me. If he really pursues the matter, I might really die. Let me take a look." Before Lindsay Taylor could even open her wallet, the other snatched it from her hands and grabbed all the money in it. "Lindsay, I've gotten into some trouble lately. Just lend me some money for steal. Definitely return it to you in the future." Lindsay Taylor felt a little awkward. That is everything I have, yet how am I supposed to reject her? Just then, someone knocked on the door. Lucy Lawrence rushed to open the door as a distraction. She was greeted by the sight of Minnie Jensen, who rushed up to Lindsay Taylor. "Lindsay, I'm so sorry for what I did to you in the past. Please forgive me." Lindsay Taylor wasn't a petty person who held grudges. Since it had already happened, she'd simply let it go. Let bygones be bygones. I won't pursue the matter. Thank you so much. "Lindsay, my dad instructed me to come here. He said that he'd hire you as a manager in our company. You can take your pick of the department you'd like to work in." The pay will start from $450,000. What do you think about that? Please, I'm begging you. Minnie Jensen's words left Lindsay Taylor dumbfounded. What's going on? Take my pick of the department, and an annual salary of $450,000. When Lucy Lawrence heard that, her eyes lit up. I've always thought that she was a useless fool. The only use I had for her was to keep Nathan Smith in check. I never thought that she'd be so impressive. $450,000. You must be making this up. Who's going to believe you? Why don't you give us $150,000 as proof first? Minnie Jensen glanced at the notification on her phone. I only have $30,000 in this account. I'll transfer everything to you. Will that do? $30,000. They must be joking, but it doesn't seem like they're joking either. Go and transfer it over. Lindsay, give her your account number and see if she transfers it to you. Still in a daze, Lindsay Taylor provided the other with her bank account number. Minnie Jensen then transferred the money over. Lindsay Taylor didn't feel much even after seeing that sum of money. Instead, it was Lucy Lawrence who turned jealous. Lindsay, I'm begging you. That's all I have on me. Can you agree to my proposal for now and work at my father's company? Otherwise, my dad will definitely kill me. For Minnie Jensen, the image of Finn Taylor commanding the four old men was still fresh in her mind. His background is far more impressive than I can even imagine. If I don't get close to someone like that now, I'll never get the chance to do so in the future. Hey, what are you doing? Hurry up and agree to it. Lucy Lawrence prodded her roommate who was still in a daze. Although Lindsay Taylor had no idea why the other was offering such a proposition, it was a good thing for her. As such, she eventually agreed to it. After Minnie Jensen left, Lucy Lawrence tried sucking up to her roommate once again. Lindsay, I treat you pretty well, right? Can you lend me that $30,000? Huh, Lindsay Taylor was stunned. What is she trying to do? It's good enough that she snatched my money away earlier. Does she want this $30,000 too? Besides, something seems amiss. She looks like she's going to run away with this money. Will she even return the money to me if I lend it to her? Sister Lucy, I need this money too. The moment Lucy Lawrence heard those words, she knew that Lindsay Taylor wasn't going to lend her this money. With that, her expression changed immediately. Hand your phone to me. Lucy Lawrence snatched the phone over and very skillfully transferred the $30,000 over to herself. Scram, you idiot. With that, she smashed the phone on the ground and was just about to leave. That was when Lindsay Taylor held onto her, refusing to let go. Scram. Eventually, Lucy Lawrence managed to break free of the other's grip, not forgetting to give her roommate a good kick in the stomach before leaving. Lindsay Taylor clutched her stomach and groaned in pain as she lay on the ground. At the same time, Finn Taylor was getting ready to leave San Diego. He was about to have a meal with Lindsay Taylor for the last time, so he made a call to her. Finn Taylor made a call to Lindsay Taylor, wanting to take her out for a meal before leaving San Diego. However, the latter didn't pick up his call. He made another call, which once again went unanswered. By then, Finn Taylor couldn't help but feel that something was amiss. As such, he rushed into his car and flew toward Lindsay Taylor's rented apartment. Thankfully, he had been there in the past. Of course, Ginger was right beside him. As soon as the pair entered the house, they were greeted by the sight of Lindsay Taylor writhing in pain on the ground. Without any hesitation, Finn Taylor picked the young lady up and rushed to the hospital. There, Lindsay Taylor finally felt much better after a thorough examination. What happened? Finn Taylor's first thought was that either Harry Jones or Minnie Jensen had stirred trouble up again. Then, Lindsay Taylor told him all about what had happened. As soon as Finn Taylor learned the truth of the matter and realized that it indeed had something to do with Lucy Lawrence, his gaze grew cold. He picked up his phone and dialed Malcolm Landon's number. Do you want to live or die? The man on the other end of the call had already been living on edge over the past few days. Although he hadn't offended Finn Taylor, he supported Philip Smith. He couldn't help but fear that Finn Taylor would simply decide to get rid of all of them. That would be disastrous. He felt as though his heart was in his chest as he received Finn Taylor's phone call, and the latter's words stunned him. What is going on? I want to live, Mr. Taylor. I want to live. All right then, bring Lucy Lawrence before me today. Otherwise, you'd better get ready for your own funeral. As soon as he finished his sentence, Finn Taylor ended the phone call. Ginger couldn't help but ask, Bro, are you sure you don't need to tell Malcolm Landon which Lucy Lawrence you're talking about? There are too many women who share that name. How is Malcolm Landon going to find her with just a name? You can't feed a dog all the time. He has to learn to catch his own prey when he's hungry. If he can't even do that, what's the point of keeping him around? Ginger shook his head in confusion, but Yvette Larson called the other just then. How's it going with the Larson family? Not bad, everything is going quite well. Alright, when are you coming back? Soon. I need to make a trip to Chicago. Okay, stay safe. Yvette Larson didn't ask her husband why he was headed for Chicago. She knew that he had many secrets. Before he took the initiative to tell her about them, she wasn't going to ask about them. Finn Taylor hung up the call, and Ginger giggled. Bro, was that your wife? Finn Taylor stared straight at the other, saying, someone said that you'd be killed if you dared to even tease your brother's wife. It was a simple sentence, but it was filled with murderous intent. Ginger was so frightened that he quickly retracted his gleeful smile. Finn Taylor was trying to let Ginger know that he would tolerate the latter's cheeky nature toward anything except anything that had to do with Yvette Larson. Lindsay, did you say that the Jensen family was trying to get in your good books? That's right, Lindsay Taylor nodded. Finn Taylor smiled. How interesting. What an interesting way of doing so. It's true that I want to support a family who would be loyal to me in San Diego. It wouldn't hurt to give the Jensen family a chance. Can you get in contact with Minnie Jensen? Tell her that you've been hospitalized and that I'm here too. With that, Finn Taylor handed the phone to Lindsay Taylor. Since the latter's phone had been smashed, she had no choice but to use Finn Taylor's phone. Although she had no idea what he was up to, she took the phone without any hesitation and made the call. Very quickly, Arthur Jensen and Minnie Jensen arrived at the hospital with a basket of fruits and gifts in hand. As soon as Finn Taylor walked out of the ward, Arthur Jensen followed closely behind the former. The two then arrived at the rooftop. San Diego is huge, I need someone to manage it, Finn Taylor muttered to himself, but Arthur Jensen quickly understood what he was getting at. He fell to the ground with a thud. I'm willing to be your slave, Mr. Taylor. You're very smart, and you must have picked up on some details. I'm willing to give you a chance, but if you betray me, I'll make sure you'll regret being alive. Finn Taylor wasn't joking. He had been betrayed again and again ever since he was born. His father, his mother, his grandma. If anyone dared to betray him again, Finn Taylor would have no qualms about simply killing them. No, I would never. Arthur Jensen felt the murderous intent Finn Taylor was exuding, and he trembled in fear as he swore never to betray the other. I don't need you to swear to me, what I need is action. I'll give you a chance. With that, Finn Taylor left the rooftop. Arthur Jensen was left there, unable to conceal his excitement. Very quickly, the pair returned to the ward. Finn Taylor turned to Lindsay Taylor. Lindsay, remember to call your younger sister often once you start working at Arthur Jensen's company. It'd be best to call her at least once a week. If you don't call her, I'll take it that something has happened to you, and heads will roll here in San Diego. Although Finn Taylor was talking to Lindsay Taylor, his words were meant for Arthur Jensen. He was reminding the other that although he might not be in San Diego, he knew everything that was going on. He had his own men here. Just as expected, beads of sweat appeared on Arthur Jensen as soon as Finn Taylor finished his sentence. The former patted his daughter on the back. Stay here and take good care of Ms. Taylor. Make sure you treat her like you would your parents. If Ms. Taylor complains of feeling unwell, I'll break your leg. Minnie Jensen was so petrified that she quickly agreed. Finn Taylor acted as though he hadn't heard the conversation between the father-daughter duo, but it was obvious that those words had been meant for him. Just then, Malcolm Landon arrived. Behind him were a few bodyguards who had Lucy Lawrence in their grips. Malcolm Landon was a respected figure in San Diego and immediately looked into Lucy Lawrence's interactions with Finn Taylor the moment he contacted him. Of course, he got hold of Lindsay Taylor's roommate in no time at all. It hadn't even taken them an hour to do so. Mr. Taylor, I've already caught Lucy Lawrence. What should I do with her? Kill her. Shock. Malcolm Landon, Arthur Jensen, Minnie Jensen, and even Lindsay Taylor were stunned. They all knew that Lucy Lawrence had offended Finn Taylor quite a few times, but how could he kill her? Mr. Taylor. Malcolm Landon wondered if his ears were playing tricks on him, so he tested the waters tentatively. Kill her. This time, Finn Taylor's answer was more curt. There were only 2 words. Lucy Lawrence has offended me 4 times. I have to teach her a lesson. Besides, this is my first time in San Diego. Those prominent figures in San Diego are all looking to observe my personality. To convince them, I have to use the most extreme methods. Lucy Lawrence had to die. The news of Lucy Lawrence's death shook the whole city of San Diego. She wasn't a prominent figure. In fact, this was the first time many in San Diego were even hearing of her name. However, Her death unsettled countless prominent figures in San Diego. In the past, these very same people would simply watch on by the sidelines. Yet, Finn Taylor's appearance warned them of a brewing storm in the city. However, nobody dared to do anything without Jerry Wood first doing so. But it was clear that Jerry Wood had lost from the very beginning. That day, Jerry Wood had kneeled down before Finn Taylor as soon as the latter commanded him to do so. The very next day after Lucy Lawrence's death, the Jensen family organized a grand and extravagant welcome ceremony for 500 people to welcome the new hour manager that Arthur Jensen had hired. Yet, he hadn't sent out a single invitation. The people of San Diego couldn't help but make fun of him when news of this got out. The Jensen family wasn't a particularly well-known family in San Diego. Even at Arthur Jensen's birthday celebrations, the family had never invited more than 50 people, yet they were holding a party for 500 people this time. What was even more ridiculous was that they hadn't even sent out any invitations. Do you really think that people will attend your party and congratulate you if you don't send out any invitations just because you're Jerry Wood? Everything was seen as a joke in the public's eyes. Just then, a Rolls-Royce Phantom arrived at the entrance of the Jensen Corporation, and out walked a man and a woman. That woman happened to be the new hour manager of the Jensen Corporation. When the other respected figures of San Diego saw that she was nothing but a fresh face, they couldn't help but snigger. But the moment they caught sight of that man, everyone fell silent. Finn Taylor. Yes, that's Finn Taylor. Finn Taylor had been the talk of the town over the past few days. Everyone couldn't help but be curious about this young man who had the entire San Diego under his control. Finally, someone could no longer sit still. Hurry up and get the car ready. I'm going to the Jensen Corporation. Where's the car? I'm going to attend the Jensen Corporation's welcome party. I should have known. Why didn't you prepare a gift in advance? With that, one prominent figure after another rushed down to the Jensen Corporation. I'm Henry Ware, the chairman of San Diego's Liberty Manufacturing. I'm Lisa Kleina, the chairman of Sense Electronics of San Diego. I'm Sebastian Hoffman, the chairman of Shish Entertainment of San Diego. One by one, the respected figures from all over San Diego were fighting to make their presence known. It seemed as though their lives would be in grave danger if they were even a second late. In less than half an hour's time, more than 300 people had arrived to fill the tables. Earlier on, everyone had even mocked Arthur Jensen, saying that nobody would turn up at his party. Yet, this was a slap in their faces. It was humiliating. Just then, another 2 cars arrived, and Malcolm Landon and Victor Smith walked out of the cars. Hiss. Everyone knew full well what statuses these 2 men held in the city. Who would have expected them to show up too? Behind them were numerous more cars that were ferrying even more prominent figures to the Jensen Corporation. It seemed like more than 500 people were going to turn up. As such, those present didn't try to give way to others and simply squeezed their way in to reserve a seat for themselves. Nonsense. There are so many people here today. I must get myself a seat. If I have to remain standing, people might think that I'm of a lower class. At the very same time, everyone was curious about the same question, whether Jerry Wood would show up. After all, he was the richest man in San Diego. If he were to show up today, that would be no different from admitting defeat to Finn Taylor and handing over the top position in the city to the latter. However, it would be even worse if he didn't show up. That would be declaring war on Finn Taylor. That would be disastrous. Just like that, all the guests waited with bated breath, wondering if Jerry Wood would show up. Time ticked by. At last, it was 10 minutes to noon. If Jerry Wood didn't show up by noon, he'd definitely not be coming today. Everyone stood on their tippy toes, trying to peer into the distance. Yet, nobody could see anything. 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 8 minutes, ellipsis. There were 3 minutes remaining. The guests shook their heads. It seems like Jerry Wood isn't coming, but that's no wonder. He's the top man of San Diego after all. If he wages a war against Finn Taylor, he might have a chance of winning. If he attends this party today, he'll be no different from a slave from now on. Why would he come? That was what many people thought, and they couldn't be blamed for thinking in that way. At the very last minute, just as everyone had concluded that he wouldn't show up, a Porsche rolled to a stop in front of the office building. The car door opened, and Jerry Wood strolled out. "I'm sorry for being late, Mr. Taylor." As he said so, Jerry Wood bowed respectfully to express his sincere apology. Yet, Finn Taylor sat there, his eyes narrowed but unmoving. It felt like time had stopped right then and there. Countless eyes were fixated on Finn Taylor as they waited to see how he would respond. However, the latter remained silent as Jerry Wood remained bowed. To be honest, it was terribly uncomfortable for Jerry Wood to remain in that position, yet he had no other choice. He had thought long and hard about attending this party. If he were to show up, it would be relegating his position as the top man in San Diego. Yet, he couldn't afford to offend Master Peregrine of Peregrine Hall. After thinking long and hard about it, Jerry Wood eventually turned up at the party. He had already imagined how Finn Taylor would butcher him in front of everyone just to let them know that he called the shots in the future. However, he had never expected Finn Taylor to put him on the spot like this. Seconds ticked by, and Jerry Wood's forehead was drenched with sweat now. Finally, Finn Taylor looked up after what seemed like an eternity but was only 10 minutes in reality. "Fine," he replied simply. Jerry Wood was finally allowed to stand back up. "Since you were late, down these shots as your punishment." With that, Finn Taylor personally poured out 3 shots. However, his shot glasses were even larger than typical bottles, and he had poured out vodka no less. Jerry Wood would probably collapse immediately if he were to down those shots. It was this very act that stunned everyone present. Jerry Wood can choose not to drink it, but that means that he'll have to leave San Diego. He has no choice but to down the shots if he wants to stay here. The beads of sweat on Jerry Wood's forehead grew larger, but he chose to step forward. He picked up a shot glass. He downed the first, the second, the third. Finn Taylor grabbed hold of his hand. "You'll have to be hospitalized if you down this shot. You'd better think it through." Jerry Wood chuckled as he continued raising the glass. Finn Taylor snatched the shot glass over, raising it high up in the air as he shouted, "Cheers." Wait till next part.